Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host. It's Haywo. What's up? You remember Haywo? He's been here every week for the past 10 years. What's going on, man?
True. Nice to be good to be back home.
Absolutely. It's good to have you back on the show. Of course, if you are not a fan, a subscriber of Haywo, his channel will be linked down below. You've gone horribly wrong with your life, and you should immediately correct that. Today, we're going to talk about why destruction armies are bad. They're bad. This isn't my opinion. I'm just a factual reporter at this point, right?
We have some stats.
Yes, like the stats are in, and it ain't good.
But also
Uh,
there is a bit of a history to it.
yes. And it's not as though this is like some new occurrence, right? And so finally, after a decade, well, let's be fair. After 9 years, because as we remember at AOS point 0.5, the old Thunder Tusk slash 20 Goblins combination that was the terror of, Adepticon 2016.
Oh, the Cunnin Ruck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those days. Throwing buckets of dice at you.
Yes. But ever since then, yes, there's been a few bright points, but destruction has always had some challenges, and they've really been exacerbated. We're gonna autopsy this. We're going in, like two detectives on a case. Consider this a noir picture from this point forward. I'll turn my own lights down to match. Halo, and then at the end we'll just decide that forget it. It's Chinatown or Destruction City, I guess. I don't know either way. And this is just the way it is. It's always going to be this way. But
Look,
first up,
Chinatown was a pretty good movie. I prefer the version of Chinatown called Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
indeed, they are basically the same movie. Yes, you're not wrong. Um, they tried to do the updated version, but like have a happier ending with L.A. Confidential, and it doesn't work when you actually have like a positive ending, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You got to get that Spielberg out of there.
exactly. So yes, Arden Throne. Hey, thanks, buddy, for the big super chat tonight, saying big chat tonight. Indeed, it is. Thank you very much, Arden Throne. You're awesome. Yes, everybody, hit like, hit subscribe, do things that make dings, be cooler, and yeah, super chats there. So if you want to throw some money at, don't forget we are in the Christmas season, so this is the super chats are going to the get Tom a not crappy microphone. So he can stop hitting his dumb mic when he moves his hands around because he can't sit still because he's a 12-year-old child. When I first met Tom, Tom was like, I think I met Tom for the first time. He was like 13. That's how long I've known him. Okay. And I was a wee bit older than him. And so consequentially, Tom has remained basically 13 to my perception the
Hmm.
entire time. Because certainly I haven't gotten any older, of course. That's just the way it is. But of course, first we're going to begin with some news. I should have had a little sneaky left turn for you, Haywo, and just like queued up a walking video and just been like, oh, we're going to walk for 30 minutes. That would have been
Yeah, we're gonna walk through place, comma Japan, talk about the news. How's everyone doing? Let's slow it down while
exactly.
everyone's painting on their desks at this time.
But no, we remain at a breakneck pace as always. So yes, let's talk about the news. And really, there's just one big piece of news out today. We know rumor engine this week because now we're in the 25 days of Grotmas or whatever the heck. We could just shove
Whatever.
these words. Just words don't mean anything anymore. It's fine. And Halo, were you expecting to suddenly have 8 cross faction, very weird regiments of renown at your disposal when you woke up this morning?
No, and I didn't really want them either.
I agree.
Just like regiments of renown and all the rest of that. And yet we have them.
We
And
do
so here they
indeed.
are.
And
Enforcers of the tithe.
yeah, so we got 8 of these bad boys. And, they're varying a lot in the number of models and points and stuff like that. And look, here's what I'm going to say right out of the gate. Okay? Just like I'm going to lay this down for people. You do as you wish. If these things bring you joy, then have fun, pick up the models, paint them up, put them in your whatever army they fit in, right? But these things, these regiments have the shelf life of like an avocado sitting out on a sunny day. Okay? Like fresh guacamole sitting out on a sunny day. Like it ain't lasting. So you're going to convert up a lot of these things and then they're going to probably go away not very long from now. So just be aware
Yeah.
of that.
I look at this kind of thing and I'm like, these will last about as long as McDonald's French fries.
That's right.
I'm not
That's
going to
right.
fill my head with them. I'm running out of space as it is.
You should say as long as McDonald's French fries are actually like acceptable for human consumption, because they'll last like forever. McDonald's French fries, you
yeah,
could just put them
some
on your
sort
shelf
of
and you can make them a mantelpiece. But
some
eating
sort of
them is like the 5 minutes after they come out. That's it.
yeah. I mean, they'll last as like a construction or a structural object for
Right.
quite a while. But
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So at any rate, let's talk them through real quick here. We're not gonna super deep dive all of these.
sure,
But OBR, we've got a Mortison Ossifector, 10 more tech, 10 more tech, and a Gothazar Harvester. Okay? And, you know, they can go in a lot of armies. Like Cities, Daughters, Flesh Eater Courts, Firesides, Gloomspite, KO, Cruel Boys, Ogres, Skaven, Sons, Soulblight. And, they can do what you would expect to do. They get a little spell. They can collect the tithe with the Gothazar Harvester, kill units and bring things back and so on. Okay, that's fine. Is this the thing your ogres have been waiting for, Haywo? Is this what you were looking for? Adding some 22 random OBR guys?
500 points of non-ogres, just what my ogre army was looking for. I'll
Yes.
wrap it up in a nice little package.
Yeah, I'm not sure who this would be valid for. I assume the problem with all these is they're not reinforced units, and non-reinforced units in AOS 4.0 are like kind of just bad in general, unless they're prospectors. So I don't know what these guys are doing.
I think all of these probably aren't for people that would be thinking about something like a metagame. They're like targeted towards, hey, I own this. Man, that would be cool. Or I'm gonna plan a themed cooperation, jolly cooperation army between these two. And by the
Yeah.
time I finish it, they'll be illegal. But it'll have been a fun project. And I think that's kind of who they're for, or I would take it to be who
Yeah.
they're for.
I assume, by the way, Chris H, that the lack of range on Collect the Tithe is an error, and that'll be changed to combat range, not just the Gothazar Harvester stares people dead from infinite distance away. I get it, Charles. Charles says we're both crazy. They're awesome. Who cares if they don't last long? It's a way to use other minis in your collection to experiment with painting or modeling. They also have fun lore. Like, I'm totally with that, and that's that's what I said, man. If this sparks joy in you, go for it. Halo and I are both of a sort where it's like I got into playing Ironjaws or whatever, pick insert army X here, because I really liked that army. Like, I am super passionate about the armies that I love. My Skaven, my Slaanesh, my Ironjaws, I love them. I want to play them. I want to play 2,000 points of them. I don't run Kragnos in my Ironjaws army, even though that is like clearly fundamentally an improvement to the army, because I didn't get into Ironjaws to run some dumb centaur. Okay? And he's like actually a valid part of the army. He ain't an orc. Right? So it's like that's just our kind of take on the thing. But again, if this sparks joy in you, I'm very happy. Martin Orlando said a real Christmas present would have been the return of the 12 good malign sorcery magic items from second edition. Yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Bring them back.
True.
Yes.
Hey, remember when subfactions are more than one sentence? That was cool.
I would honestly keep the slim subfactions if it meant we got cool magic item lists and heroic traits and stuff like that. And like other things. I would trade those for that in a heartbeat. All right.
They're capable of typing those words. They've done it before.
That's right. All right, the exile. Oh, by the way, how much were those guys? I don't have the points handy right here. They're at the bottom of the document. Hold on. I thought they were at the bottom of the document. All right. They're somewhere. I know there's points. One hold, please. While I bring up the points. There we go. Okay.
I'm going to take this opportunity to thank Martin Orlando for $5. I clicked like. You know, you can click like on people's donations, and so I did. But you know what else you can click like on? This video.
That's right. There you
That's
go. All right.
interaction.
I love it. Yes.
And
Okay, here we go.
Love it.
I got the points.
Right.
The Enforcers of the Tithe are 510 points. That's going to be a big skip. That's going to be a big skipper from me. Okay, Exile Scavengers. So this is an Endred Master with dirigible suit, who I do like. Cool model. 3 Sky Wardens, also cool models. And a Grunstock Gunhauler, also a cool model. I like all of these. And in fact, I have conversions of all of these as city units because I played a whole blah, blah, blah cities army, all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Which one was the one with KO? Was that Tempest's Eye?
Yeah, I played a Tempest Eye army. That's right. Which all got retired. Speaking of retired things, like I had this huge, completely converted loving army mix of KO and cities and Stormcast and hey. Okay. At any rate. Yeah, so I mean, again, they do what you would expect KO to do. This one, again, fits into a bunch of stuff. Beasts, Bone Splitters, Cities, Daughters, Fire Slayers, Gloomspite, Ironjaws, Cruel Boys, Lumineth, Ogres, Ossiarchs, Seraphons, Slaves, Sons, and Soulblight Gravelords. This is 460 points for this one. And I honestly think this one is, like, pseudo-useful. Okay? For armies, like, if you're really struggling for prospectors, because these little guys can make like okay decent prospectors. It's a ton of points to sink into your prospectors, but it's little flying guys who can do battle tactics. Like if you're Sons of Behemoth, this is honestly a pretty worthwhile thing to think about. You're trading out one of your giants, or like you're taking like 3 megas and these guys, and like that's probably fine. That's probably a better army than having 3 babies in there for purposes of your actual battle tactics.
Yeah, they're 3 little dudes that can go in 3 different directions. They all fly, have faster move than your Gargants generally.
Yep.
And yeah.
That's right.
It kind of fills a slot for you.
Exactly. Ironically, like probably there's a lot of points, but like thinking about who else could make use of it, probably Ironjaws as well. Frankly, maybe instead of your pigs. I don't know. Like it gives you some kind of shooting power, which is nice in an army with like no ranged power whatsoever. Most of the other armies, I don't think this is probably necessary.
Yeah, and most of the other armies are used to paying 200 for their 2 prospectors rather than double that.
Mm-hmm.
Although I mean, you know, they have some shooting profiles. So if you have none of that, they can hit something.
Yeah, exactly.
An enemy prospector unit for 80 points that might die to it or something. I don't know.
That's right. Okay. Next up, Squires of the Everchosen. So this is 1 Vargulf Courtier and 3 Morbeg Knights. This is 310 points. Anything where they include like a hammer, I'm generally against it because non-reinforced hammers don't like do anything. That's the issue. This goes in all the Chaos armies except Skaven, because even though the Horned Rat is officially joined, all of his paperwork hasn't been processed yet, apparently. So we're not allowed to have all the fun things the rest of Chaos gets. So, okay. I love that they're on a little quest to kill a particular enemy unit. And if they do it, they get +10 control. That's hilarious. I guess you just pick like an enemy prospector unit and then send your 300 points to go chasing after them for fun and profit. But again, I don't know what you're taking this in. Probably Nurgle, I guess, cause for some kind of speed around the edges. But
yeah, a lot of these are just like pick the slowest armies that are struggling and add something to them, I guess.
Orchestra with a super chat from the Great White North of Ontario, Canada. Hopefully this can get Y'all and yours a coffee. Hey, thank you, Orchestra. Really appreciate that very much. It'll help Tom get a microphone, and I hope life north of the wall is going well up there for you. Um, all right, next up, the long lost spirits. One tree lord, 5 spite revenants, 5 spite revenants, with a fascinating list of people that this can go into: Flesh Eater Courts, Idneth, Night Haunt, Ossiarch, and Soulblight. Okay. These guys, by the way, are what are they points wise? They are 430 points, and I do not think a single army on this section would ever take these.
If those were tree revenants, I would be a lot more interested.
Yep. Spite revs
But
in groups
they're
of
not.
5 don't do anything,
Yeah.
and a tree lord alone that's nothing. This is nothing. And you're playing with a bunch of like Night Haunt's already the best army. They don't need to be watered down. No, thank you. Keep your 430 points of bad.
Yeah.
Like no. Sylvaneth is a good army now, but it's a good army when it uses all of its abilities, not when it's just 2 random units that don't get taken anyways. The funniest one, I think. Nurgle's Gift, 180 points. It can go in Beasts, Bone Splitters, Cities, Daughters, Flesh Eater Courts, Fireslayers, Gloomspite Gets, Ironjaws, Caradron Overlords, Cruel Boys, Lumineth Realm Lords, Ogre Maltribe, Skaven, S2D, Suns, Sylvaneth. A lot of armies. What is it? Nurglings with 3 models, and Nurglings with 3 models. Okay. And they are deployed off board, and if a friendly non-Nurgle's Gift unit would be destroyed before the last model is removed from play, roll a dice. Add 1 to the roll for each other friendly non-Nurgle's Gift unit that has been destroyed this battle. On a 5+, pick a friendly unit that is festering within and set it up wholly within 6 inches of that model. It can be set up in combat. So they kill one of your units and outpop all the little Nurglings.
Yeah, still in combat, which is quite annoying.
That's very funny. Yeah.
That's like kind of good, but I don't know. Again, what are we 3 drops now because of this thing?
Yeah.
Does,
These are all automatically a drop, yes.
does that kill it?
Probably. It's cute though.
Yeah.
It is very cute.
Put it
let's
in
see.
Beast of Chaos so that your opponent has even less of an idea what your stuff does.
Right. Things are exploding into Nurglings. They're coming in off board, but still fighting, doing stuff from reserve. Like, what is going on in this army? Robert T says, hello, Vince. With AOS 4 being out for almost 6 months now, do you see yourself playing more AOS or old? I assume you're going to say Old World. Yeah, okay, Old World. More AOS. I mean, I do have a good time. I've played some Old World. I do like it a lot. But I have a couple armies I play with Old World, and they're fine. I have a good time with them. But I have a lot of armies I play with AOS. I mean, I'm at this point more than 50 games into AOS 4, so I mean, like, I've had a good run. So yeah. Let's see. And then Branu Mate with the super chat. Now there's a man who doesn't need a new mic. No, absolutely not. Haywo's mic is buttery smooth as always.
I did just upgrade, and I'm so far pleased with it.
Very nice. Y'all, I'll have to talk to you afterwards, so I can see, just depending on how the super chat goes, maybe I'll get Tom a nice mic.
Sure.
Or I'll just send him mine, and I'll buy that one for me.
Yeah, there you go. Revolving door hand-me-downs.
Exactly. All right. Stumblefoot Gargant. Hey, whoa.
What is this ocean garbage that they pulled up
Call a
with an
model.
iron rake out of the plastic island in the middle of the ocean? Is this a mistake? Is this some sort of error next to the car batteries? Put it back.
So, Halo, you remember when every goblin box for like the first 5 years of AOS would just come with like a random giant or whatever? Like giants
Yes,
would
I
just
do.
randomly get thrown into other boxes.
I remember when they had a start collecting ogres box, and it had a gargant in
Giant
it, which was not in our army, and at the time was not even allyable. We couldn't even play with it.
Yeah.
It was just in the box.
So this guy goes in like basically everything.
Please
Uh,
buy him, someone.
like
We made too many.
I'm pretty sure it's is it every army? I think it's actually all 25 armies like that this dude
They
could
might as
go
well have
in,
just typed
except
every army,
Suns.
including Mega. You can ally it in Mega Garkins if you want, even.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know why
pretty
you
sure he
would.
goes in everything except Sons of Bahamut. Yes. Um, so that's very funny. It's a single Mega Gargant. I mean, boy, this guy has like a lot of abilities.
Yeah,
They're all
it's
rampages.
he's got projectile vomit, which is what I do when I look at the sculpt.
Yeah,
He has bellowing mockery, which is what I use my mouth to give him. And he has what are you looking at? And the answer to that rhetorical question is my least favorite sculpt they currently sell. Great abilities, very meta.
my God, nailed it. All right, yeah. Nope, skip. Nobody needs a single giant. Just in case you're curious, this guy's 180 points. Okay. Snurks Trog for hire. This is one Loon Boss and one Dankhold Trogoth. Okay. Uh, and like the goblin lets the big troll retreat and charge, which is fun.
Hmm.
Okay. And the he still takes damage for retreating away, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that rule's kind of like there and exists, but here we are. But he can do it. And uh, the troll gives the loon boss like a very good ward save, but he makes it pass it off to the guy, to the troll. Um, okay, so a guy and his troll friend. What a wonderful little adventuring party this is.
Yeah, we
Uh,
got Milo and Otis over here.
yeah, this is like NPCs you would meet in Soulbound, right?
Yeah,
Like your party would be wandering
they're
and they'd
like
run
quest
into
givers.
Snurk. Yeah, and his Trog friend. Like these are great NPCs. Great color, great flavor, great character in the world. I do love them for that purpose. Snurks is 250 points. Skip. Lastly, Gorowan Scions. I don't know. It's Minotaur
Uh,
people.
Not Garoan in my army.
So these guys are one Ogroid Myrmidon.
Scions point to not playing him in my army.
Every time I look at these regiments, I Garoan as
Yeah,
well.
you
Yes.
Garoan, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one Ogroid Myrmidon, one Ogroid Thaumaturge, three Ogroid Therodons, who are very good, I will say. Like these are three units I do really love. I like
Hmm.
I do love all these units. I love the look of the Chaos Minotaurs, I will say. Like these are some of my favorite sculpts, all like
Yeah.
writ large. I think these are all awesome.
Yeah, they look great.
Uh Pick a friendly. So like these guys go in destruction forces, by the by. So Suns, Ogres, Cruel Boys, Iron Jaws, Gloom Spites, Bone Splitters. They're just big fans of destruction. That's there you go. I love that their backstory is these beasts known as Ogroids were once the Garoans, a race of destruction that fell to chaos after Oryx sacked their capital. Okay, and so like the explanation here is, oh yeah, these guys were destruction. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
twisting the knife. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Warpstone Enjoyer, as far as I know, I don't remember this being referenced at all previously. So I don't like this little piece of lore here. I don't remember it from anywhere. Um, all right, Garoan Forgecraft. Pick a friendly destruction hero that is wholly within the combat range of a hero in this regiment round. Be a target. On a 3+, add 1 to the rend characteristic of the target's melee weapons until the start of your next turn. Good buff. Cool. It's on a 3+ because it's still they're back in destruction now, so they can't have abilities that just work.
Right. Yeah.
They left chaos behind.
Hmm.
And then let's see, Bellow of Gorka Morka, which is a spell for your Ogroid Thaumaturge. Pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches. Right there, you can stop reading. 7 to cast, and an enemy unit within 12. Stop it. Always terrible. Okay, this has been established lore. Okay, cool. Good. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Ah, cool. Very nice. I don't remember this lore, so yeah, it is, but apparently it was from back in second edition. They made mention of this, so that's cool. Okay. Effect: the target has strike last until the start of your next turn. In addition, while the target has the burning keyword, subtract 1 from hit rolls for the target until the start of your next turn, which is what the Ogroid Myrmidon can do through his combat attacks.
Yeah.
He makes people burning, which is cool. He's quite fragile to be fighting in melee, but you can do it depending on what you're fighting against. But still, that is rough on the range of that spell. Okay. These guys are 470 points. Woof. That's like a lot for some people who are gonna die pretty fast. But hey, it's all right. It's cool enough. I like them. The Myrmidon still can pull the Therodons into combat and give them +1 to hit, which is cool. The Thaumatarch is just there to be, also present. So there you go. Them's the regiments of renown.
Am I reading that right? Can you not give? You can't give like Kragnos or something that buff.
Correct, because it can't be. You couldn't do it to a Maw Crusher, right? Anybody like that, because they got to be wholly within the combat range.
Wholly within the combat range.
Yeah. So like that's actually really close. They've got to be like right next to them, like literally touching their base in most cases. I would hope they would change that as well and just make it within the combat range. It's actually quite rare that they say wholly within and then combat range. That's not very common because it is such a small bubble for another model to be standing within.
Yeah.
Completely. Like almost every time you see that restriction, it's just within because it's really close, right? You don't need the wholly. You can't daisy chain 2 people. So I don't know. Whatevs. Anyways, yeah, they're cool. None of these spark joy in me, but if they do for you, I mean, I might run I might try Suns with the KO stuff since I've already got all the models just to see if it plays better. And it's such a meme army anyways. Like, who cares? There's no like, oh, I have mechanical giants. It's mechanical stuff. It works. Sure, why not? There. Done. But yeah, like as it is right now, you're probably your best target for it in this stuff is like, amongst all of these things, like what could actually fit if they don't remove the wholly within combat range restriction. Like your mega boss on foot, because making him Ren 2 is actually quite meaningful, and he's only got a 2-inch base. So that's probably one. It's like he literally, if you put him in Suns as it is right now, they literally can't use the ability.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, cool. That's the regiments. And that's basically the news as well. That's kind of all of our news. I did want to touch on one other quick news item in the world related to our miniature hobby, which I have no graphic for. But the other news item that I wanted to touch on, this is the only Games Workshop news item. This is separate, but it is relevant to our larger world. So a bunch of people at Vallejo are on strike. So I believe basically all of the workers, 75, 77 workers or whatever from the main Vallejo operation in Spain are currently on strike because they are protesting for living wages and safety standards and anti-harassment policies. Those are their 3 requests, all of which seem
okay, Your Highness.
Exactly. All of those seemed quite reasonable to me. I watched the interview with the leader of the strike, and they were like, yeah, the ceiling collapsed a couple times and it didn't fall on anybody, but we'd like that to not happen. And I'm like, good God. Okay. Yeah. Like, I feel like they got a point here. Yeah. So I don't know. Vallejo got partially acquired by a private equity firm, and great. That's what happens in our world.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah.
So, but I hope that Vallejo comes to the table, because, people being openly harassed in their workplace and having the building fall down around them and getting paid what I am to understand is their minimum wage, like it's the equivalent of what's minimum wage in Spain for that work, feels not great. So I don't know. You do what you think is right, of course. I'm not your parent. But I would say support the Vallejo workers in whatever way you feel appropriate to show solidarity with them, because their requests are quite reasonable. So I am hopeful that Vallejo will come to the table. They have not openly called for people to stop buying their stuff, but I can say for me personally, I probably won't be buying some Vallejo stuff anytime soon, even though there is many products I use regularly and have right now that I love, and it's a shame and it hurts my heart. Yeah, the Vallejo metal color. Yep. I mean, I'm gonna I use what I have, but it does make me sad. So at any rate, yeah, I thought that was an important news item to just kind of talk through because that shouldn't be the way companies in our hobby space conduct themselves. We're not dealing with huge megacorps within our hobby space. These are relatively small companies, and we should hold them to a standard. They're the leaders of these companies are pretty close to us as it is. It's not some distant CEO of tens of thousands of people. It's not Zorg, right? Fire 1 million. You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like it's, there you go. Just be reasonable and do whatever you think is right, I guess, is my statement. But I support them and hope that they get their demands met. Okay. Cool. So that's all the news. All right. Let's go to some pick of the week as I timestamp this. Hey, what would you like to share with everybody?
All right, I have two.
I'm ready.
Picks of the week. The first one is unspecific, but at any time of the day, if you go to twitch.tv/Warhammer, you'll find about 17 people painting, streaming to one person. What if it was two?
That's
it.
nice. I like that.
That's my suggestion. It has to start somewhere. And
what better place than now? Or sorry, what better time than now? What better place than here? There we go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And the other one is I'm going to be running tomorrow a Palladium Rifts game live with featuring a person your chat might have heard of. You.
That's right.
And CG Abusta and Jupes, who may or may not be there, but the rest will, and the show must go on. The return of Rifts. It's finally back. It was going to be every other week, and then every other week for 2 months, someone was busy, including me sometimes.
Yes.
But such is the struggle. I always said the hardest boss fight in any game is being an adult and scheduling the game.
It's true. But we're back, baby.
And it's time to keep that train rolling, literally, if you know anything about the story. And don't worry, I'll do a short recap. Short is in double quotes with an asterisk after it.
We met some people. We did some things on a train. There you go. Recapped. Yeah. Done. Mm-hmm. Easy. Okay. Did you ever see the alignment chart for how do you start a session of a role-playing game? And it's like, the lawful good to chaotic evil. Mm-hmm. And I believe like one of the evil picks was, so what happened? The DM just saying, so what happened last time? And making the players do it. Mm-hmm. All right. My pick of the week is for our good buddy Doug at 2+ Tough, who put up a new faction lore video. That's what I want to say. For S2D. And so if you are still deep on that S2D juice, then get yourself some of that. Drink deeply of the awesome lore delivered by our good buddy Doug on his channel. So I will link that down below. All right. So with that, let's turn to a little hobby time. I knew that was coming. I couldn't stop myself. And indeed. Hey, whoa. I'm sorry, everybody, if I blew your ears out. Hey, whoa. What have you been working on?
Well, for a change of pace, I've entered the part of the season where I'm toning down the real work. And so my hobby time has been writing the script for Every Army 4th edition YouTube video.
Wow.
I'm about 10,000 words into it, and the average is like 30,000 or something like that for them. It'll take forever. I do it in between my normal work, but that's been my hobby. I got two of them, every army in 4th edition and Age of Sigmar lore. Speaking of lore,
Uh-oh. Nice.
and this is one where I restrain my artistic licenses and flourishes to only 65% of the whole thing rather than 90.
Nice. For myself, I put together this girl. This is what is this? Mila Sharpblade. There you go. I put her together. Trust me, she's like right there off camera. She's a big figure. I'll grab her. Told you she was right off camera. There you go. That's what she looks like. So super cool. I'm heading over to Sam Lenz's next week, and we're doing an all-week paint jam. We're going to both paint this figure together, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Set her to the side. But I'm not just assembling a thing. I am also painting things, and of course that would be Skaven, our good friends here, the little Giselle team. So these guys are almost done. It's one team down. A couple more hours on them, and boy, we'll be ready to go. Then on to the next team, and so on and so forth. And you just keep hammering them nails. That's right. Oftentimes when I'm painting on these guys, I'll put on the folk song about John Henry, or John Henry. Yeah,
working on the railroad.
Yeah, just that railroad noise. You just keep hammering, you'll get there. So how far am I ahead of John? Oh, I mean, he's screwed. John is gonna have nothing because he has to spend the next like 3 months working on his Golden Demon entry, which is a Skaven model, but will be one model. So like he's done for. It's over for him. About to end this man's whole career. Okay. All right. When am I going to paint the 12 obligatory rattling guns? Never, because by the time I would get them done, they would most certainly be nerfed. So we make investments. We don't buy high here at Vince Venturella Industries. Okay. We paint. I've got the Brood Terror painted up. Stonks. That guy can only get better. He's such crap right now. There is no way it could ever get worse. So I'm good to go. What 3 Skaven would you recommend as a must for the Skaven army? I love my Skaven army. Well, a Grey Seer, obviously. I do have the new Grey Seer. He's coming up here pretty soon for me. That guy rocks. A Arch Warlock, because also another quite important and awesome character. And I don't know, probably like a unit of Giselles. I just think Giselles are cool and have been cool forever, so Giselles are cool. Sniper rifles are cool. Rats with sniper rifles are cool. There you go. That's my picks. Okay. With that, hey, whoa. Shall we turn to the main topic of the evening? I'm sorry. Why is destruction bad? A Warhammer autopsy. Now, before I get into anything, do you want to start with your part, or do you want me to go to the stats?
Yeah,
Where do you want your parts to sit?
Your part is mostly rules and mechanics and
Yes.
things like that, and I can't wait because that's like the meat of it. But I think that we should set the scene.
Set the scene away, my friend.
So like lore and branding and things. I wrote a little thing.
I'm ready.
It's 100 words per year the game has been out.
I stand prepared. I am an audience member with all of you out there, audience. Hit like and subscribe and do all those cool things for Haywo, because he went to all this trouble to do this today. Go ahead.
Grandeline's destruction. I think the fundamental problem with destruction is that the meme is real. The following ideas trickle down from concept all the way to mechanics. Think about the Grand Alliance's high level. Order are the heroes. Some are flawed. Some would be evil in any other context. Some don't get along with each other, but in this world, they are the familiar standing against ruin. They have a strong purpose. Chaos are the main bad guys, and their gods span across GW games and IPs. The cosmic conflict. In fact, the Grand Alliances could actually stop here with just these two, and it would be a fully functional game and world. Order and chaos, horde and alliance, rebels and the empire, red team, blue team, two sides at odds in all ways. They have a strong purpose. Death is an addition to the order chaos dynamic we've already established. It's not completely necessary, but it is in some ways an expected third wheel, and it works. The basement floor underneath all conflict, the repercussions of failure, the afterlife, and acting as generally a secondary bad guy, but also the potential for complication, either by strange bedfellows or interacting with their machinations. At the end of all things is death. They have a strong purpose. Once again, we could stop here, and this triad of order, chaos, and death could make for a complete game. What does this leave for destruction? The second third wheel. Considering the words and concepts of order, chaos, and death, destruction fits poorly. It's a third negative, literally another word for chaos, but with Korn's name crossed out at the top of the piece of paper. Yes, the conflicts of the game all cause death, but that GA owns it. The conflicts of the game all involve destruction as well, but this GA struggles. What does it oppose? Everything all at once? Taxes? It's just random dudes who fight anything. Stupid brutes is the entire premise, and that's really thin in comparison. It's about as deep as beast type enemies in Diablo 4. They do not have a strong purpose. In other words, the meme is real. They are NPCs, jobbers, window dressing for the setting, a grab bag of leftover angry inhuman stuff from the previous game, which was itself Tolkien bad guys. I think they fudged this one in 2015 to force it to fit somehow, with the pieces they had still in hand, and the trickle down effects are still being felt. I think this is the spiritual source that has informed problems with this GA for a decade now, almost. A bundle of memes and NPCs isn't exactly a guiding light for design. Order and chaos are perfect opposites. Once you add death, the proper diametric to have for a fourth one would be death and, say it with me, life. And there's plenty of lateral to put their own twist on it. Chaos is arguably more orderly than order mechanically. Order is barely recognizable depending on the faction you're looking at. If you apply a grimdark filter to the concept of life, I think you could make a lot of sense and also start to see the few good threads GW have pulled on already. Survival of the fittest, mutation, hunter and prey, evolutionary arms race, consumption, violence, reproduction, profligate waste of untold billions to at each step find the most efficient way to climb Mount Improbable. I guess what I mean is take the concept of life and have Werner Herzog describe it. But if they have, over the years, ended up latching onto some of these correct themes and just started with a less fitting name, isn't it fine? What's in a name anyway? We're humans. We want our characters to have purpose and motivation, our teams to have clearly defined enemy teams to oppose, goals to point to, and a flagpole ready to raise on the hill when we reach it. What I'm talking about in Age of Sigmar terms is gods. Conceptually, chaos could have a lot of the problems I've laid out here, so why does it work for them? Because the chaos gods work. Sigmar and his pantheon works. Even Nagash works after a bit of diversification. Destruction has one god, and he's terrible. underwritten, distant, stupid in a bad way, shallow, a leftover orc slogan from an old game. It's time for a change at the top. They tried the many illusory faces of Gorka Morka thing, and it simply did not work. A poor one size fits all for such a big tent. Does that sentence sound familiar as we move into products? With the exception of Gargant's every destruction army is soup. Three and a half orc armies in the same third edition battle tome because they're all green, who cares? Two different ogre armies in mod tribes because they're both ogres, who cares? The what? Soon to be fifth different faction shoved into Gloomspite Gits, like a clown car bursting at the seams. You can practically imagine each one hanging out of a different window trying to fill out bingo cards. Ironjaw's orcs and Cruelboy's orcs should be two separate physical battle tomes for the same correct reasons that Deepkin elves and Lumineth elves are, or Caradron dwarves and Fireslayer dwarves are. Soup books feel bad. And when you're reading your rules, it is painfully obvious as a player of the time not spent on one or the other half of a soup book, or forgets fourth of a book, soon to be fifth. It's one thing when a sub-faction that amounts to little more than a color scheme gets poor support. It's another when a 7-box model line does. These problems trickle down from ideas to books to rules to tables or lack thereof to sales or lack thereof. It's time for a change at the top. Gorka Morka has failed. It's time for some good old-fashioned rebranding. It's time for a real destruction pantheon, a life pantheon. But what would they do? Well, what is there room for them to do? Order fights for survival and control of the realms, and chaos fights for domination of the realms, below which death fights and schemes for subjugation of the realms. Now, what should life do? It should represent the realms. If Cities of Sigmar is a good node for world building, and it is, we have a whole GA that could be that. The life stream weapons from Final Fantasy, the Kami of Princess Mononoke, the Praetors of Phyrexian Mirrodin. We are told the realms are alive, so prove it. You already have god beasts. Make them earn that first part of their name. Personify the setting and have it organize in a revolt against all these outsiders through the minions of the GA. But not by accident, not by random chance, and not by useful idiots conned into it from the illusion of the facet of a stupid orc god. It should be on purpose, because purpose is what we invented gods for in the first place.
Very
Right,
nice.
and that's why destruction sucks.
No, I love it. I think you're dead on. There's so much there to unpack, and we will touch on some of that as we go through this. But I think you really hit on. There's sort of a lot of key elements that were sitting under your concept there. By the way, I just cannot get over the fact that this guy in this picture has his sword shoved through his skin. Like, that was distracting me the whole time.
That's
Like,
visual storytelling. Their skin is so thick and blubbery
yes,
that they
that they can
can
just pierce
sheath
it with
their
a sword.
swords in it and not a care in the world.
It's not that. I understand all of that. That's fine. I get the concept, right? Like,
It's
sure.
also hella stupid.
It is completely stupid because, like, your skin is also, not have open giant wounds for a
Yeah.
reason, because it doesn't take much to actually cause infection and death. But that, none of that, like, all that to the side, it's not actually, like, sure, let's just say his skin can work like that and he doesn't die. Fine. The end of the sword is like this big,
It's
and
bigger.
the base of the sword is there. How did it get in there? That the physics of it is actually what's bothering me. Because if he had put it in blade first down the top, he would have cut too much and it would just slide all the way down to the hilt. So, anyways, that's literally what was bothering me so much, the physics of the thing. Okay. All right. So I agree with you, because, like, here's ultimately the challenge, I think, in my mind. I think sort of if I was going to RCA sort of everything you just described, one of the big challenges there is that destruction is the only faction that's disallowed from being intelligent. Okay? And like they can have cunning machinations and whatever. They have to always play it like little things. It's like, oh, it's a clever little
Tap
goblin or
dancing around it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to be really like we got to be too clever by half every time, right?
A low cunning. We can't
Yes.
say smart. Everything has to be stupid in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. Which like, okay, I fine, whatever. Let's just imagine whatever the heck you think that is exists, GW. Okay, like sure, that's real. I don't know, man. I know a lot of stupid people. I wouldn't describe them as having a low cunning. I would just describe them as being dumb and thinking they're smart. And then like their dumb plans blow up in their dumb face and they're like, I don't get it. Well, that's because you're dumb. Um but like and that's destruction over and over again, right? Nagash can like because everything is Nagash and Nagash is everything, but he also has brilliant Mortarks, like undeniably brilliant, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, 3 of his 5 Mortarks are like renowned for their brilliance of one kind or another, right? And he himself is obviously a sort of, you know, meta genius who can plot and scheme for thousands of years to execute his plans. On the order side, you know, they obviously have intelligence. They're fighting against other things, but like they have gods like fallen out left and right who are known for being smart. All the elvish gods and you know the leaders of the cities are all arcanists and warriors and scholars and
Yeah,
you
the
know
technology of KO.
right exactly.
They made aircraft carriers. That takes some engineering.
It takes a little bit. Flying aircraft carriers takes a bit of work, being that we don't have that in our world right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Um. The. Uh. I would love to see him display that, Charles, in any way, shape, or form, because I don't believe that. He still looks and acts like a big, dumb idiot. And he gets bodied by a single stormcast jumping off the roof of a building and punching him in the face. Okay. So like that's fine. You can describe that in a throwaway sentence all you want, but like error 404 evidence not found, right? And chaos is obviously brilliant because they have all these machinations. Like we make fun of Khorne for being too tactically smart in the way it's executed. Like Korgus Kull, their main protagonist, is like in his final moments of his story, he outsmarts everybody. Like he sees through it all and is smart. Archeon is brilliant. Zinch is a plotter and a schemer. Kairos, and on and on and on and on. Right? Yes, he does kill that Stormcast. I understand. Gardas does die, but still, he takes Gardas to the face and goes down.
He kills that Stormcast, by the way. Who's smarter now?
Yeah, right. Got him. He got tricked into that whole thing. Like, whatever, all the other factions are allowed to be intelligent. And the reason this matters, by the way, is because intelligence creates motivation, creates plots, creates schemes that other things creates action in a story that other things react to, because otherwise you're just a natural disaster, right? You're no different. Like all of destruction is no different in the way it interacts in the story than like a hurricane or an earthquake or any other like just sort of rolling natural disaster that's unfortunate if it comes your way, right? That's basically what happens. The ogres going on their little actual hurricane looking cycles, right? To eat and so on and so forth, right? That's not like they don't have and the ogres are the smartest of the bunch, certainly, right? Like frost lords are not dumb, but they're not portrayed as like smart enough, or they're not given enough agency
now.
in the story, right?
Yeah.
To actually like
Maybe
execute.
maybe crew boys now are smarter, but before them, I think the ogres were technically the smartest.
Yeah, sure. I yeah, they can have like a who's the smartest dumb guy competition, right?
Yeah.
Is basically what it would come down to.
The
Like,
most surprisingly fast fat guy.
exactly, yeah. Who's gonna get the C plus, right? That's what we're fighting over here, right? But nobody in these factions is playing at such a level that they motivate actual like change, action, activity, response in the world. Yeah. And so that means they always get overshadowed in some way in the stories, right? Because there are silence, dum dums, smart plotting characters and gods are talking, right? Like that's what happens every time. Yeah. And it trickles down into the design, right? And we'll talk more about that, but that's just the reality. Because the faction is seen as dumb, then they have to be dumb, right?
Yeah, and because these guys are dumb, they have to play dumb. And dumb people are going to be drawn to the dumb army that plays dumb and kind of flow charts its way to one option at any one point. And that's obviously not the case. And a little bit of, I don't know, there's been chagrin over that forever in much of the destruction community. And GW has shown that it's perfectly willing and capable to go the other way and do the other thing. Look at how Korn plays compared to its branding and hype guy, you know? Korn
Exactly.
generally is a pretty complicated, fiddly army to play tactically over the years. And whoever their marketing is on the in the Korn part of chaos, I don't, they might be doing them a disservice. And so just
Uh
because it's supposed to be dumb smash doesn't mean it has to play like that.
that's right. That's right. Iron Prominent said, Vince, I'd argue you've got it backwards, and it's actually their motivations that cause the problem. A faction that only wants to fight or eat doesn't need to be smart. Now, I agree with you. That's fine. I'm not against the concept of this being like, of having factions that's their motivation, of like factions that are hurricanes or whatever. Like, that's okay. The issue is then you are just a hurricane. And I care about your character as much as I care about the character of a hurricane. We name hurricanes after people, but they don't after like person names. But they don't have characters. They don't have plots. They don't have arcs. They don't have like losses and hopes and dreams, and those don't get dashed against the rocks, and they don't like have emotional attachments and losses, like not in a way that we can become deeply invested in, because most of them are just hurricanes. That's a problem. Okay? Because what people get invested in is not does their hurricane sweep over the land. It's like you get invested in characters that experience success and failure and hardship and loss and victory and triumph and defeat and everything, right? Like it's not a character. That's my issue, right? V said hurricanes technically have arcs. You got me.
Yeah.
Actually, you got me. You got me though. So like, and then they had the chance when they introduced Kragnos, right? They could have made him like he could have shown up and been smart. Like you can have these characters who are still bent on destruction, but like are themselves intelligent.
Yeah, you could have the Bane type, right?
Sure, Bane, Obold Many Arrows from Forgotten
Yeah.
Realms, like who's a
Yeah.
brilliant tactician and warrior, right? And like he's the leader of a nation of orcs. Now, eventually, he stops going to war as much because he sees what it means, right? He knows what it's going to cost him, but he will still fight. He still leads orcs, right? But
Oh,
he's
I don't
like,
know. That's dangerous. That sounded dangerously close to character development.
yeah,
Vince.
exactly, exactly. But
But
like, it's
yeah,
it's
that was
because
kind of a dropped ball, like you said about
yes,
Kragnos. I read his backstory, and he might as well have been wearing a football jersey
right.
for all the the depth of that.
So like, this is ultimately, I think this is at the root, right? This is the rotten root that like keeps the entire tree from actually growing, right? This is why the fruit's poison, as it were, to just really butcher my metaphor. um and so yeah, that's ultimately little cutesy wootsy goblins who are like little cunning dudes or whatever, like the little things they keep playing at. It isn't going to be the same. Okay, what's the comparison I can make? Okay, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is pretty smart, right? Like he's a science kid, kind of a nerd. He made the web juice and he made his little slingers, right? Whatever. Like he's a clever kid, right? But he's like a kid. He's smart, but depending on where you are in the arc of Spider-Man stories, he's just like, yeah, he's cleverish, right? He's smartish. But he doesn't motivate the but he's not Tony Stark or Reed Richards or Doctor Doom or whatever, like, world moving plot folks, right? Those are the people with like a level of intelligence that move the whole world's plot around. Spider-Man gets in punch ups in his neighborhood, right? And then gets drawn into things. The Clarkin, thank you for the super chat. Hey, first time live listener. Well, we're happy to have you, the Clarkin. It's great to have you along. I love the show. Well, we love you, buddy. All right. So, anyways, I think that's just at the root of this. Did I miss anything there, Haywo? Was there anything else?
No, that's good. Yeah.
Fergom says Spider-Man would be terrible in AOS because all spiders are. Got him. Got him.
For real.
Yes, obviously Doctor Doom is the GOAT, Dad Bod Nap God. I carried Doctor Doom's Marvel card, original series, not one of the later ones, in my wallet in front of the picture of my wife forever. So if I open my wallet, the first picture you saw was Doctor Doom. And the quote on the back of it was, "What is pain? Pain is like love. Pain is a thing for lesser men. What is pain to Doom?" Okay. Which is a quote from when he was dying fighting the Beyonder. So there you go. At any rate,
I recently went to Washington D.C. on business, and this guy works for Médecins Sans Frontières on the side of the street. Him and a lady, they were trying to get donations for it,
sure.
and I used to work for them, and so we struck up a conversation, and he asked me, "So I'm in an argument, all right, and we're counting tallies, all right. Are you a Marvel guy or a DC guy?" And I'm like, "I don't really know the difference." And he's like, "Okay, well, who's your favorite superhero then?" And I'm like, I don't really know if I have one. And Spider Jerusalem, maybe. And he's like, "Well, I don't know who that is. Who's your favorite villain then? How about that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's Doom." And he's like, "There it is. I win. Score another one for," and I think he said, I still don't know. Is this Marvel or I think
Yes,
it's Marvel,
Doctor Doom
right?
is a Marvel villain. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
arguably slash protagonist hero. He fills a lot of roles.
yeah. And
He's a
so I
very
had a
complex character.
conversation with human beings outside. It was weird.
First of all, Spider Jerusalem is like a super great answer. That is I love that entire series. So yes, great answer and real. Like it would have been funny if you just said like, I guess technically you would have still been answering DC, but it would have been funny if you said like Dream or Destiny or somebody like that, like out of the Sandman series, or something.
Yeah, yeah.
That is technically DC, and obviously because that's what the imprint they published it under, and they made him use a bunch of silly DC characters in the first story, even though there's no purpose to that. It just like quickly was like, yeah, don't worry about all that. It's fine. Anyways, all right, yeah. Or like if you had come up with like, I can't remember any of the characters' names, but if you had referenced a character out of like Battle Chasers, just like really hit him with the deep cuts.
He's like, "Damn, I was thinking Thor, maybe,
Like what was pick
Daniel."
something that like Jim Lee did as a side project in the 90s for Image imprints, like right, like something like that. Pick one of Rob Liefeld's great hits back there. All right, let's get into the real stats. Okay. I told you my Liefeld story, didn't I? Hey, whoa. Of my WizardCon 99 Rob Liefeld story.
Yes.
I'll tell it for everybody else now. I'll retell it to you.
It's worth it.
So I was at, this is a complete non sequitur, but this is how Halo and I normally hang out, so you're all just gonna have to put up with it. Rob Liefeld, famous, infamous to some degree, comic artist, and writer, and did lots of things. Obviously, one of the original Image guys, broke away with McFarlane and all those. I was at WizardCon in 1999, and I came out of a panel that featured like Mark Wade and Jim Lee and who did the Savage Dragon? That guy. That would have been a great answer too, by the way. Savage Dragon. That was really good. I mean, he did like Punch God. Um, but at any rate, like it was. Oh, and Peter. No, who else was up there? It wasn't Peter David. Maybe it was Peter David. I don't know. At any rate, like those four guys, and there's a big talk about comics and delivery because it was amongst the whole Battle Chasers controversy of like comics were taking forever to deliver, and so that was kind of, it was just like a topic about that. And I come out, and Lee Field's name had come up on the panel as somebody who wasn't delivering on time and yada yada. Mm. And we walk out of there, and there's some guy, like two people in front of me. Like it's a packed auditorium, so people walk out. We're all just shoulder to shoulder. It's like two people in front of me. There's this dude just like top of his lungs, just railing on Rob Liefeld, just being completely mean to him. Just like, obviously this guy is nobody. He doesn't know who, this is just some nobody. And I'm like, Liefeld, whatever you think of him, he did create a lot of stuff. Like he's successful. Okay, we can all, haha, he doesn't know how to draw feet. Like whatever, do you know how to draw feet? I don't, whatever. At any rate, he like, just, be nice and respect people is all I'm saying. And he's just being like, he's just yelling about him. Like I could hear him clear as a bell. Just being like, this dude sucks. He's so terrible. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then I turn around and two people behind me, clearly still in hearing range of this, is Rob Liefeld, who's walking out of the same auditorium and was in the audience for this whole thing and is now hearing this guy, this person, just yell about him. And like, I just thought that, like, this has stuck with me for 25 years because I'm like, man, I wonder if that like haunts him at night. I don't know. Maybe he's just used to it. Maybe he's like water off a duck's back. But that would rattle me. That's all I can say. So, I don't know. There you go. Welcome to Vince's non sequitur with Halo. But there you go. Poor Rob Liefeld.
I think at a certain point you have an understanding about that kind of thing. Thick skin is kind of a meme, I suppose, but that's kind of it. You put yourself out in the public. Sheer law of numbers, you get big enough, you're going to get a real amount of people don't like you very much and have half a mind to tell you about it.
I suppose that's true. That's true.
I mean, with that one, maybe some of it's easy to brush off and some of it isn't. Maybe this one hit home. Geez, I really can't draw feet because he can't. But,
Yeah, he looked sad. I will say that. When I turned around and looked at him, he looked sad. But I don't know. He was also getting like yelled about on a panel of his professional peers too, which would hurt me more, I think.
Yeah, so. It is the place that one's coming from.
Right.
What is that? P.G. Woodhouse. He looked like a sheep with a secret sorrow.
Yes, exactly. All right. So, at any rate, let's go to now that we're done non sequitur over, let's go to the stats. Okay. So here's the picture, right? So this is Warhammer's most recent stats. Thank you, Warhammer, as always. Awesome work. Thank you for doing all this hard work and collecting everything. Check them out. So our bottom three armies, bottom three are our destruction. Ogres, Suns, Ironjaws. Exactly who you'd expect it to be. Like, if you just started playing the game 5 minutes ago, you'd be like, these are the worst three armies, right? Yes, you're correct, right? Then you've got Cruel Boys in the fat middle, but on the lower side of it. But they're up there. Like, they are 40, safely in the fat middle.
40%, yeah.
Yeah, they're at like 48, yeah, something 40, 48, 47, okay. Something like that. They're around there. And then you got Gloomspite up at the top, which is they're doing that like solely on 1-2 type of lists, right? Basically. Okay. That book has the worst internal balance in the world. So there is one bright spot here. Fair dinkum. Gloomspite is doing okay. They're on the border of problematic with their build. But like, boy, is that a tale of two cities. Like my guess, hey, whoa, is if you dig into that and I like separate out the lists, you know what I mean? Like if I look at the performance of the troll squig herd lists versus like people who are taking a bunch of goblins and mangler squigs, it would look like we'd have a fourth participant down in the 40% bracket.
Yeah, if this was using speedrunner lingo, it would be called gitsless gits.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Git skip.
So, um,
Oh, I should put a point here as far as this picture. Having a low win percent or losing a lot, being bad, if you will, doesn't necessarily mean not fun to play.
that's right. That's
You
right.
often do get both because intrinsically, if you instantly lose, it doesn't really matter what your guys would have or could have done if you don't get to do anything right. But it doesn't have to mean that. It's just often the case, right? It's a spectrum. I'm remembering very early second edition. Beast Claw was terrible because all our monsters captured one, and the only way you won the game was by points. And so we essentially auto lost on points every game unless we tabled our opponent. But it was a total blast to play because all our guys were overpowered. They just couldn't play the game the way the game was meant to be played
Right.
as far as a win is concerned. And so you can be fun and still lose all the time. Uh, it's just I don't want to speak for the armies I don't play, but uh, we are both at this point.
Yeah,
It's
it's
it's not fun and we're terrible.
exactly. Like that's I think that's exactly right. Um the I mean, it's also possible to commit no mistakes and lose. That's not weakness, that's just life. Another famous saying there.
Yeah.
Uh but like, and that's very true in Warhammer. Although everybody makes mistakes all the time, you can oftentimes just be up against their force. So like, win percentage isn't everything. People all these factions you're gonna lose plenty, but still, but still, it is shocking. Like, this isn't new, right? These things have been floating around here for a long time, over multiple editions. Okay, so that's just the autopsy part. We're gonna talk about why. So let's get into high level challenges. Okay, and I think this is really important. We already talked about the lore stuff, and you might say, yeah, but that's just stupid lore stuff. That doesn't matter, right? Like in the end, you can write good rules, and I agree with you. That is fully possible. But the issue is, we need to talk about top-down design. Okay? In game design, there are generally two broad strategies. One is called top-down, the other is called bottom-up. And the simplest way to think about this is, do you start from one high-level concept idea and then fill out the rest? Or do you start from the need, like a grid of a bunch of ideas you need to fill, and then you just start plugging things in to a rubric? Okay? So you could design Warhammer in either way, right? You could. Like, you could start out saying, okay, every army needs an anvil and a mobile anvil and or like a pinning unit and a hammer and a prospector and so on. Like, you could just go through the roles and start making units drop into those roles. That would be doing bottom-up design, right? But that's not how Warhammer gets designed, really. Spezia Poet says, or throwing in the super chat saying, just supporting a big brain stream. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Spezia. Much appreciated. How Warhammer armies get designed is concept. What's the core concept theme of this thing? Whoosh, everything flows down from that. Right. That's how rules get written. And so when your top of your concept is, these are dumb brutes, right? That aren't like smart or tricksy or clever or powerful or whatever. Like, it depends on exactly where in the destruction factor we're talking about. They all have some mix of this. That are goofy, that are whatever. That don't have a unifying story like you talked about, right? They are just truly, it's like and also those guys. They don't have the same motivating force in the world. They're not the protagonists. They're not the antagonists. They're just not. It's different. CJO Busta with a $20 super chat saying, destruction battle tome to the polls.
Yeah. We haven't in the Halo streams. We haven't let that one go. The Pokemon go to the polls. It, that is an infinite. That is an infinite meme. Good work.
It really is. So yeah, I mean, what do you? That's my theory is that this is ultimately like what we talked about earlier, that poison, and then filtered through the lens of top down design is how we got to this place.
Yeah, with if it's like that, from top down, it doesn't force that. You could still get somewhere interesting, but it is kind of like a little assistant pulling at your shirt every time you're about to type something and be like, "Remember, they're dumb though.
Right.
Is that too smart for them? Because they're is that too tricky? Um, he probably can't beat the Selson Prime, right? Stormcaster the heroes, right?
Exactly. Other Dave too says, "What if it's okay to have an outsider for fun alliance?" Other Dave, I think it is. I think it absolutely is. I think you just have to be aware of that and be careful of what you're doing when you're doing those kinds of top-down design works. Otherwise, you get caught up in it. If the concept of your top-down is these are dumb blunt instruments, these are hurricanes, these are natural forces, these are whatever, and then you end up writing your rules where the only thing they do is play straightforward Warhammer with no tricks, no capabilities, no the things that actually make armies win because they're just the straightforward dumb blunt hammer army. You're going to write bad armies. You got to be
I
aware
think
of
you
that.
you can very much do that with an army. I don't know that you should do that with an entire Grand Alliance.
Yeah, that's another good point. Right,
And then
absolutely.
also maybe like a megaton elbow drop. Um, if it's supposed to be an outsider for fun alliance, then how come it isn't any fun?
Yeah, that is a challenge. Um, all right, some other things here. Destruction tends to have less tricks. I put that in quotey quotes. But it's true across the board. Their armies, as I've said, are portrayed as these blunt combat instruments, and so that's how they play, right? Like they don't get the cool tricks. Like, yeah, okay, Ironjaws has a teleport. It's sitting on a single spell. So, and your spellcaster is pretty Av and Garbo. Like, okay, that's a teleport. That's a sort of trick. Other people have those like teleports on just a regular unit because it can be tricky, or somebody comes forward and they move, right? Like Lumineth style play you would never see in a destruction army. That's crazy. They would never write it. That's the easiest compare. And it's like it could be. You could write that kind of thing.
Yeah. You could write Gabapalooza with half of Teclis's rules.
So it's just a challenge. I think for the most part, they have a lack of recursion across a lot of the armies, the highest performer being the exception. What I mean by that is like um, Ironjaws don't recur, Suns don't recur, Ogres don't recur. Like when you're dead, you're dead. When you lose a model, that
Yeah.
model's gone now. Right? The exception being Goblins, and I would point out they are the highest performing one because it turns out that recurring nearly impossible to kill trolls is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Turns out. Weird. Um Although their
Yeah.
recursion is kind of weak-ish, I will openly admit. It's not great,
Yeah.
but it exists at least. Uh the system tends to overweight like by the system what I mean is their points evaluations tend to overweight combat abilities just like numbers and underweight hard to define special abilities. But ultimately these are what actually makes armies strong and win, right? Like I don't know how their system interpreted Huracan rules when they had old like float away from combat and never be attacked ever.
Yeah.
Okay. This is in fourth edition. I'm referencing the most recent
It, when
incarnation
when
of
they
it.
typed in the when they typed in the Huracan's war scroll to the AI program they wrote to spit out numbers, it gave them a definition of a hurricane from Chat GPT.
Exactly. So like I don't know what it counted those as, but it didn't count them high enough. I'll say that. But I know if you write damage 2 on a model, suddenly it's like, oh, the system's just like this thing's incredible. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, when I was trying to define something like that, I was going to use the word intangibles for these like special abilities that
Yep.
really enable an entire play style or make or break a thing, but they're not intangibles. They're actually very tangible. You look at Slaves to Darkness, and you're like, you have a spell to give 3d6 charges to anyone,
Yep.
and you have Bellicor that shuts off the most expensive unit in your opponent's army.
You also have a mark now that you can just find God in the
Yeah,
middle of the game and get 3d6 charge.
like that's really tangible.
Yes.
It's right there. Uh, I guess just like look at it. I don't know, as if you were gonna play it.
It's one of those things where I just feel like they have classically and always throughout all of AOS undervalued. And you're right, intangibles is the word you want to grab on, but they're very solid, right? But these other quirky, I just want to call them the quirky abilities. They always undervalue them, and every time it's the quirky abilities that end up being the powerhouses.
And
Every time.
sometimes it's the same quirky abilities, edition after edition.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same mistake that they fixed last time, and it's like we're doing it again. We will not learn.
The exception right now, like the
Sometimes it borders on frustrating.
exactly. I think the one exception right now to that, like the quirky special abilities are what makes things win, is the is Varangard. Varangard are like the bluntest instrument in the game, right? You got
Yeah.
six of them. They can fly across the board. They can 3d6 charge. Then they come screaming in with like a million attacks that are all crit mortal at 3 damage each, and they just and then they fight. Then they do it again because they fight twice once a game, right? And they just paste whatever they hit, right? That's the hammer. That's just like no, that's not a knife. This is a knife, right? Like that's what they are. They're the ones, and like again, they're super expensive, and yet turns out you can pay the points for them, but when they can kill anything in the game, it's pretty worthwhile, even if they're that expensive. Yeah, a third of my army to kill anything in the game sounds great. Okay, most people don't have that option, so
Man, that sounds like the kind of thing that you would have in Destruction.
right,
You know?
doesn't it?
The kind of meat and potatoes blunt instrument. And then it's the other armies that should have the parachutes and all their twirling mustaches to get out of jail free and try to trick their way around it.
Exactly. Exactly. So Molefax add our destruction armies also slow. Speed is king. Well, we'll talk about it. We will
Generally,
talk about
yes.
that. Yeah, a little bit.
Surprisingly, they
It's
didn't
like,
used to be, but they've been getting slower every edition.
yeah, I agree. While other people have been getting faster.
Well,
It's
yeah,
weird.
yeah, weird.
The rich just keep getting richer. I'll tell you what.
Oh, all right. What? How do they keep getting away with it? Oh,
I've just written here RNG, and boy, if that's not the thing. Like I understand it's a dice game. Things are supposed to be random. We're supposed to make decisions under like
yeah,
I know part of their design principle is make decisions under situations of uncertainty, and I value that and think that is, uh, you know, that was correct and right, and it's a good design principle to have for this game. But does it need to be so much for everything destruction? You know, is that how it has to work?
yeah.
Uh,
I
I can think of plenty of examples I can give out of my own armies. Like,
we must simply disagree fundamentally on what a good representation of silliness is as it pertains to like rules.
right.
Me and GW, we just have like we're opposed. That's it on what's fun. You know, they think it's fun when once a game nothing happens, and I happen to not.
Yeah.
It's there's too much of it. They think like random is fun. I don't know, and
Well, and like obviously there's
maybe
some
I'm the wrong one.
psychographic profiling to this, right? Like if
Yeah,
you're more
sure.
Spike, then obviously this is very painful. Like the entire Destruction Grand Alliance is generally painful to you.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a way to do it where everybody's happy in general, or at least
Sure.
generally.
Spezia Poet said there's a difference between uncertainty and casino, and I think that's exactly right. right? It's like it really does feel like sometimes you're just betting it all. You're like pushing all your chips crazy, and being like 24 red. you know, it's okay, sure. That's a heck of a run there. Um, the last thing I have written here, Heywo, is 4+ to hit. I feel like that's just a relevant thing. 4+ to hit. A
Yeah,
lot of
I
that
feel
going
like
around.
that's I feel like that. I mean, that's something you can latch onto. It's so quick and easy. It's like a slogan: four up to hit bad, right? Give them -1 to hit, and they do 0 damage, and that's like kind of true. But if we're really going in there and we're going to tool around under the hood, it doesn't matter what you start at, what just crunch all the numbers and figure out what your average expected is on the table. If it's fours to hit, or fives to hit, or twos to hit, you can do stuff before, during, and after if you're going to talk about changing mechanics. I'm just thinking about what are the outcomes.
That's right. Yep.
But as it
Like
stands, without doing anything else, yeah, fours to hit suck.
it sucks. Just because like it's also nearly impossible within all these factions to get +1 to hit, and they made -1s to hit like outrageously common. I
Yeah.
mean, other than of course all out attack, but you're not going to sit there. You can't like all out attacking all the time is a very bad use of your command points in fourth edition.
Mhm.
So there you go. Okay, so that's kind of like your high level challenges, right? Okay, let's talk about the armies. I found this awesome picture. This is from the Soulbound Destruction book, which I haven't picked up yet. I know it's been out for a little while. I feel remiss. I've got all the other ones, but I didn't pick up
Oh
the
yeah,
Destruction
they
one yet.
photoshopped some leaders in there. That's fun.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Because I like really. I don't know if you happen to read the Soulbound Death book at all, Heywo, but it's really good. It's super cool. The concepts and stuff in there is really fun. So I
Nice.
do want to pick up the Destruction one. I want to see what they did with the ogres. Like how did they portray these guys? Right? I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
I know how we did it, but
Mhm.
it'll be
I think we
interesting.
just like copied the template of a Kurnoth and changed a thing or two. I believe it
Basically,
was.
yeah. Which is like makes sense at an abstracted level. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how into the weeds we're getting on each of these armies as far as what we would change about them, if that's what we're getting into.
My answer is we can go as deep as we want.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'm gonna in in the effort not to say the same thing every time,
Yeah.
can I make some general points that pretend I say that every army?
Absolutely. Let's go.
If a foot hero isn't a wizard or priest, basically make him one. Just rewrite him. If you have to be a special snowflake, and you don't want to be a wizard or a priest, give him a spell-like ability that matters. Pull into combat doesn't count. Control doesn't count. If you're not a wizard, priest, or have a relevant buff, you wasted the ink to write him. For
At
cavalry
minimum,
heroes,
please get rid of them being a drop. At minimum.
yeah, and basically all. I mean, the army composition roles I think are kind of problematic this edition for reasons I'll aren't really fit for the video. But anyway, for cavalry heroes, it's the same. If two units have the exact same job, they probably shouldn't. Probably you need to either find a more specific thing or come up with a different job. If you have two units that are basically trying to do the same thing, they probably shouldn't because you're just going to use the best one. And then why does the other one exist? Maybe they're different species or they look different. I don't know. But we need to diversify what things are trying to do. Faction specific endless spells should probably be better than generic ones. Kind of makes sense to me. Um, and do not put the 2 up D3 roll on an ability that already had to roll to succeed.
Yep. Or that is used once a game. That
Yeah.
would be another one I would stare at there. Yep.
2 up D3 is a good idea for reducing the total number of dice rolls in the game to streamline the game. You should put it on abilities where it's just like in your hero phase, target something, 2 up D3, move on. If you have to pray to then do a 2 up D3, you get into a weird place where you succeeded a prayer but then do nothing, and so you kind of failed at a prayer, and also you lose your charge points, and you're doing this extra rolling anyway. It's I don't know. I don't like that thing. And then finally, for every unit or war scroll, ask yourself into what role that you have made important in your game does this unit fit? I came up with 5. I bet I'm forgetting one. Maybe you can add to this 5 like jobs or
Sure.
roles broadly
Sure.
for a unit to have in the game of Age of Sigmar. Delivery, buffer, hammer, farmer, chaff.
I think those are all good. I think there's like sort of spins on those. So we had what we call I went through and did the best units and the worst units, and where there I
I think you can
identified like
combine some of these into stuff, right?
yeah, and I
Like
called
there's
like the
some overlap.
significant seven, right? So like mobile hammer and ranged hammer I would separate because you can have two different hammers that are operating in different ways, right? One being that goes out and gets gold or goes out and kills people like
Yeah.
where they
I think
stand,
a
whereas
hammer with
one
no
can shoot.
delivery method isn't even a hammer, though,
Sure.
almost. You're
I
just kinda
mean,
bad.
I don't
Maybe the
know.
6th one is bad unit or something.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Um, when it comes to like anvil, you could have like a sort of a static castle anvil, or you can have a mobile pinning anvil. Like they're not going to be as tough, but they can go out and
Yeah,
hold
I'm
somebody where
glad
they are.
Abaddon brought that up in chat as well. They mentioned Anvil, and I thought about that. I think there was once a role known as Anvil in previous versions of the game, but in 4th edition, Anvil is chaff.
Sure, there's just nothing. All I shouldn't say it. There's
And
almost
chaff
nothing tough enough to survive the hammers that are
yeah,
floating
chaff
around
is
right now.
made to waste the opponent's time, and so a pin is basically that. Um, a mobile anvil, like a anvil that's fast, well, that's a farmer. It's just a little harder to kill it, you know?
Sure.
And if you're a non-mobile hammer, then you're chaff anyway. The damage is pretty high this edition with pinpoint laser strikes.
Yeah, I have had multiple games where there was like where amongst my troops, over the course of the turn, like I lost 70 to 80 wounds.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot of damage being dealt out in one round in a game where you probably have 120 wounds on the table, losing like or 120 to 160, losing 80 wounds in a single turn, not round, turn,
Yeah.
right? That's like, whoa, okay,
But that puts a lot of armies in this game, product line wise, in a strange spot. You have armies like Stormcast of 76 War Scrolls,
yep,
you know, and you look and you're like, I'm looking for a hammer. Oh, would you like your hammer to be fast? Yes, I would. Okay, well, you have 6 choices.
that's right, that's right,
Oh, okay. So, cool. Is one clearly better than the rest? Because if you have 6 generic hammers and one is clearly superior, you don't have 6 hammers, you have 1 hammer and 5 paperweights,
that's right.
unless you can think of a reason to do something else. This is like and we're just about to get into Gloomspite Gits. The problem with the massive soup book
That's right.
is that you have like 2 choices with how to build it. You either go keyword bingo or you go the cream rises to the top.
That's right. So let's get into
And
the specific armies.
yeah, yeah.
So
Gloomspite Gits, all right.
yes,
If you had the old Cities of Sigmar problem where everything was just kind of power pairs, and that's about it. If you built this book like that, then it would be the cream rises to the top. And 98% of all of its war scrolls would never be used ever. Uh, you would choose a squig unit to be your farmer, you would choose a trog unit to kill stuff, you would choose whatever, and then the majority of the book would just be the 3rd and 4th best unit for any role, and you'd never use any of it. So you can't do true soup book, cream rises to the top with Gits. But we got 4, and after those previews with Git Mob, 5 factions getting shoved into this book. So I guess you have to do keyword bingo. You have to kind of pretend like it's 5 armies in here.
and
That's a
and
lot of work, though, to balance 5 armies and then any combination of it.
and it's just never going to happen, right? You look
It's
at the
not
current Gloomspite
going
Gets,
to
and
happen.
again, this is at like a 55% win rate. Like they're busting, they're almost too good. But
Yeah.
I argue that that almost too good
It's kind
is
of gluttons
based
all over again.
exactly,
You
exactly.
sweep the leg, and the faction will tumble to fourth worst.
Sweep the leg, Sensei. Sweep the leg.
Mhm.
All right, so uh, because you have trolls standing here, being like even through some small nerfs, they're so good because they're tough. They have a reasonable capture in their group. They heal like crazy, and they do good damage with good rend. And when they die, as I mentioned, you can recur half the unit back, right? Now,
Yeah,
it's
they're
not the
little
best
slaves to
recursion, but it can
darkness. They're
happen.
just meat and potatoes, good at everything.
Right. You could just like you can do a seize the center with your troll army and not be afraid of the clapback, right? You move like 12 Raka trolls up into the middle, backed up by something else that's gonna hit, and you're like, yeah, go ahead, charge into me, see what happens, right? See how that's gonna work out for you. Okay. Then you've also got like squig herds or that kind of thing. There's a few squig units that can fill in this role, but I like to use herds as the example because they can run in these like massive wound blobs, right? That when they die, cause quite a bit of mortal damage back on whatever killed them, and then half the unit. And by the way, if you don't kill them out completely, like if you don't hit them with a hammer that actually completely lifts the unit, that unit's coming back. They regen really fast, right? Because the herders just sit there and pop back quite a few dudes back into the unit every turn. And so, like, things just die against you. And if that thing charges you, you're dead. That's what? A squig herd charging you is like 81 squig attacks? That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Like
You'll
that's
fail those saves eventually. The weight of
yeah,
dice
exactly.
theory.
Uh, hello, weight of dice. Yeah, exactly, right. And the reality is, most of the other units just don't compare. They're just too fragile. Like I know Stuart, the Iron Gutsman, a man who I have great respect for. He's talked about like the carpet of goblins. I just think it's not any good. I really don't. Things in this game hit way too hard. And a bunch of goblins with like a 5-up, 6-up save, whatever, basically no save, the equivalent of no save, are just going to get pasted, right? Oh, yeah, sorry, Lodovicus, you're right. Just 80, there's no champion. That's right.
Oh, true. I forgot that. Yeah, you're right. There is not actually a champion. It's like Yetis. There's no unit champion.
That's right. Yeah, 80 attacks with crit mortal. Hey, turns out that'll get somewhere. Um, but like those big unit, like I play a lot of Skaven, I play a lot of clan rats, so I know about cheap mass bodies, right? And I've played the 120 clan rats army before. That's 120 wounds of like just clan rats, and that's 900 points my army or something like that, right?
Mm.
You know what happened? I got tabled by like the top of 3 because things just went into me that were like, what is this, 40 wounds on no save? Sure, I can do 40 damage. Watch me. Here I go. And then they did. Right? And that was it. Zip, boom, dead unit. Like it's not hard to hit that. It's not hard to hit that much, to do that
Well,
kind of
hey,
damage.
I don't. You're lucky though, because if you had Stone Skeleton, you would have taken 39.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Really could have changed the numbers there.
Groundbreaking.
Um, so like that's the issue with like masses of gits with a lot of the other stuff. Like we're not even gonna talk about spiders and that kind of stuff. So, I'll be interested to see what happens with their new book. Obviously, we're sitting on who knows? With those guys being announced and the book coming out, I assume their book is like February or March or something like that. I don't think it's that far away. So, before we get, there's like probably going to be a battle scroll here at the end of the year, beginning of next year, but because if they go every 3 months, but realistically, before we get the one after that, there'll be another Gits book, and so yeah. Will this come into balance? I don't know, but I think you're right. The fundamentals here are so rough because it's like you've got 5 armies shoved into a book. You've got that roll. Who's the hammer? There's going to be one pick. That's your pick, right? Unless they can minorly, like the way they would make a difference, like the way Halo they could break it up, is if they actually gave different paths to victory as an army strategy through subfactions, artifacts, and heroic traits and stuff, where it was like this army can win by building a castle, right? Then you can
Yeah.
have different units, like then you can have two different anvils or two different hammers, and they're valuable for in different reasons, right? Because one
Yeah.
list is going to want this hammer, but a different list is going to want this hammer because they actually are more valuable in that way. This is
Yeah.
something this is something Magic does really well, right? Like if you look in Commander, this particular it's very hard often to find like the best in class answer for particular slots in your deck because certain commanders will just make a certain card. This card just lets you draw two cards. This card lets you sacrifice a creature and draw two cards. Okay, well, the second one seems objectively worse, right? No, not if your deck cares about you sacrificing things. That could be
Yeah,
a way better card.
a lot of Magic is finding ways to turn a downside into an upside.
Right.
The complete op man, killing my own creatures, that's terrible. Unless I
Unless.
had Bridge from Below in my graveyard, then
Sure.
actually I
Or
do
Grave
want
Pact on the table or
yeah,
whatever,
or
right? Yeah.
Grave Pact or whatever, what have you.
So I just think that, like, I wish they would think about that. I don't path to victory is what I generally want to call it, right? Like what's the I wish they used subfactions, artifacts, and heroic traits more aggressively to build interesting paths to victory. To almost like put those three things together so you could like custom build your quote unquote commander. You understand what
Yeah,
I'm saying? That then
the
altered the way
equivalent
the
of
rest
a
of the
mill
unit you evaluated the
strategy,
rest of the units. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever AOS equivalent to, well, I'm gonna win with mill, or
Yes.
I'm gonna win with poison, or I'm gonna win because this test of endurance says I simply win if I have enough life, so now I'm a life gain tech. You
Right.
know, um, whatever the AOS version of that would be, and maybe battle plans are too formulaic for that to be the case, but I think we could do it. I think there's plenty of room there.
Yep. I think that's exactly right. So, I am suspect. Like I'm glad this army's had a moment in the sun. It's awful to play against for the most part when you play against those trolls. Because they are one of the few anvils in the game that's like often capable of withstanding some of the better hammers. Not the
Yeah.
best hammers, but like many armies don't have hammers that can overcome the trolls. That's
Yeah, and
the
a
issue.
lot of even really good hammers are only one failed buff spell away from not
Right.
being able to do whatever, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Um, I see that, the sub factions probably just have to be super keyword, even though I feel like perhaps I'm unfairly latching on to what may have been just a passing comment on an interview in fourth edition where they're like the sub factions are going to be more playstyle focused
This
and
I
less specific model focused.
This has
And I
been a thorn in my
really
paw forever. Yep,
and
since
I
I
really
latched onto it
liked
too.
what I heard when I heard that. And then I looked at every index almost and I'm like, damn, it'd be cool if that was the case.
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of exact war scrolls and keywords here that inform play styles through the nature of what those war scrolls are, sure, but I don't think I took it the wrong way purposefully. But with a giant soup book like this, you just kind of have to do that because if you have access to all of your units at full power, you're just going to simply choose the best. You kind of have to lock such and such hammer being good behind kind of going all in on whatever keyword they're a part of. Maybe you have to choose which bad moon you get so you can't mix and match. Maybe they give up and just let you mix match so you play the top 5 units in the army and everything else sucks. I don't know what they do, but whatever they do, you gotta fix the bad moon. That shit sucks, pardon me. Uh, Everyone hates the bad moon. Representing table light in rectangular quadrants that no
Sure.
one plays with. Like, imagine you're playing Age of Sigmar. Ooh, hold on, I have to divide the table into quadrants and have my cloud of guys here have a sharp edge along. Oh, it gotta be wholly within this thing.
Yep.
Invisible lines pretending they're there, randomly rolling to see if it moves, of randomly rolling to see if it just goes away halfway through the game. Everyone hates this. Everyone hates every part. This is consider this, we call it the bad moon because it's bad. Okay?
Yes.
It's a joke. Consider this mechanic like basically a total failure.
And by the way,
Um,
they know it's bad. I can like if you're out
Everyone
there,
hates it. Yeah.
if you're somebody watching and saying, "Hey, Will, you're being too strong. You're being, you know, that's hyperbole." I love the bad moon. If you say, let's say you're that person. Okay, first of all, cool, good. I'm glad you like the mechanic. Whatever, that's fine. Okay, but here's how I can prove to you that they know it's bad. That they know it's a failed mechanic. Hey, well, their terrain piece, the Loon Shrine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it do?
It counts as being under the moon at all times.
Yep, it broadcasts
Because
the
if it
bad moon
didn't,
around
nothing could, yeah.
because they
Which is a
knew the
band-aid
mechanic
for the
they wrote
system.
alone was too weak
Yeah.
and too unpredictable. So they were like, okay, well, we'll give you this terrain piece that you can also set, and that's also the bad moon, right? And if you cast this endless spell, that's also the bad moon or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like the point
And if
being
you
is
take
that
Scragrod, you can also once per game make it the whole table.
yep, that right there tells you that they know
Yeah.
when you're throwing that much good money after bad. That tells you you've got a sideways mechanic on your hand,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's cool that you're going to represent the bad moon's light, landing on your different races of guys in your soup book, and each race gets a different bonus. That starting point, cool. It's just everything after that. We got to start over. I wrote a sentence here. What if the light was within 12 inches of the Loon Shrine and each objective you control? If a friendly unit dying causes you to lose control of an objective, that objective now radiates the bad aura, which curses enemy units within 12 with penalty versions of the buff the slain friendly unit used to get. +1 armor is -1 armor, etc. Each bad aura goes away if you recapture its corresponding objective. If the Loon Shrine dies, the unit that killed it is cursed. I made this up in 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's just it. We could go 10 directions, right? This is why
Yeah.
like I always am reticent to be solutioning, not that I don't like that or anything. I'm just saying because like the reality is there are lots of ways you can solve it, but the first step is you've got to actually admit that there's a problem there. And I think that's what they've been reticent to do,
Yeah.
right?
This isn't
Directly.
normally I don't try to go in and be like, this is what the exact ability should be. It's like we're just directing traffic, you know?
Right. Right.
We're not saying what color your paint job should be. I'm just saying it's very easy to instantly iterate on anything. Like I wrote that in 5 minutes. You could do whatever. It
Yep.
could be half of the table. It could be choose a unit per whatever. It could be terrain. It could be objectives. It could be enemies. It could be yours. It could be all of your heroes. It could be the whole table on and off. You could do like anything.
Yep. There
But
are
please
options.
don't do
What you're
what it
doing
is
right
right
now.
now.
Yes. Good. So the chat's got some good opinions here. Justin Crandall said it basically matters on trolls anyways. Everything else is pretty mediocre. Yeah, that the double kick of like not only is it a random mechanic, but also it's a bad mechanic. So that's just like that's fun.
Yeah, I think the buffs should probably be balanced a little bit. I'm looking at +1 armor. That's pretty good. I'm
Yep.
looking at +3 control score for the things that are in units of 40. I don't know that I care
Is
that
this a
much.
joke? Is this
Yeah.
like are you joking with me?
Yeah. Is this a buff for ants?
Okay. Let's go to the next army. I have these in reverse order of quality, by the way, because like gits are like half good. We have to admit that. Like
Yeah.
half too good, maybe, or hinging on it. The only thing keeping them at 55 is the fact they're getting drugged down by the rest of their book. The reality is the trolls and Squicker are like way higher as a win rate, right? Okay. All right. Cruel Boys, the next strongest. Like just under like 48%, something like that. Not a great place, but not a terrible place either. Let's be frank. Okay. So Cruel Boys, I think, have some of the strongest porcupines in the game.
Mhm.
Unlike most of the destruction armies, they do have tricks. That's like
Yeah,
their
and
whole
they
thing.
even call them tricks.
Yeah,
We're gonna give them tricks this time.
that's right.
Have a roll a 2 up, and then a 3. Make it go up to 5. They love that.
But these guys have tricks. Like it is a thing. They play
Mhm.
in all the phases. That will not be consistent for most of the rest of this review from this point on. Right? They're there. They're doing
Their
stuff.
tricks are good though,
They are.
which is why they have to do the random thing.
They got
Like, all right,
teleport tricks. They can shut off, like, man, it's crazy what all they can do.
just strike last.
Yep. Turn off your charge bonuses, give you neg 1 to hit,
Yeah.
do crit mortals, like all sorts of fun, amazing things, right? Like, yeah, teleport around the board. Man, this is good stuff. It's great stuff, right? But ultimately, they will never be above a 50% army because they are the most RNG. Like, they're the most RNG of the destruction armies, I submit to you.
Yeah, they're RNG from both sides too.
Yes.
Because as a tricky glass cannon that explodes into powderized vapor when anything actually hits them,
If they don't get all their tricks off.
they're difficult to play,
Yeah.
and then all of their tricks are behind RNG as well.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
right.
eventually either you're gonna make a mistake or the dice are gonna make a mistake for you, and you're just gonna be there in that mid section.
I do think, by the by, these are the most fun Destruction Army right now. Like, playing Cruel Boys actually is pretty fun. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've played like against Cruel Boys or played Cruel
yeah,
Boys.
I have it written down here. Cruel Boys is probably the success story of destruction for me in
I
fourth.
agree. I agree.
It pushes against almost everything I lambasted them for in my intro.
Yep.
Cruel Boys are trying to do all that stuff,
Yep.
and I think they're succeeding for it.
But they'll
We're not
never,
trying to get everybody at 60% win.
of course.
We're trying to get everybody fun and in the Goldilocks zone of okay for the game.
That's right.
And I mostly like Cruel Boys here. Um, Something I might change if we're changing stuff is I like Lightfinger. I like how that affects your dirty tricks in a positive way. I kind of want, in other factions, I sort of rolled my eyes when you read the allegiance abilities and then you read the sub factions, and every sub faction just says you can do an allegiance ability plus 1 times.
Yeah.
You can do an allegiance ability. I'm like, okay, lazy. But in the Cruel Boys, I actually want that.
Right.
Either one extra time or make it more consistent for each of the dirty tricks. I actually would like to see that moving forward.
There's like one other odd thing I wrote down here, that a lot of their best tech is like anti-monster. Like, these guys have a lot of anti-monster tech in their army, and monsters right now are just like pretty bad, pretty just
Yeah.
all over the place. So it's kind of like some of their best stuff is just not as useful right now as it could be.
Yeah. Even that's like kind of okay because their anti-monster stuff is so cheap.
Sure.
You really can just run something. And chances are somebody's got a centerpiece.
Yeah, you can kind of main the sideboard card and just be like, well, it's fine. It's got enough
Yeah.
other off-label use. I'll still find an out for it in most games, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it does suffer a little bit from the like random heroes that can't cast spells disease, but I suppose everybody has that. So
Yeah. That's just
and
because
Master
Magic sucks in
Blaster looks
AOS
fun.
unless
I
you're
wish you could play him.
yeah, unless you're like a spell dom. Magic sucks in this game, so
Yeah.
it's fine. Um, the I agree, Abaddon. Hobgrots are like, oh boy, well, I don't know what they're doing there, but okay.
Yeah, but they look so ugly. I don't even want them to be good.
Yeah.
So we can. It's like
Get out of
Yetis
here,
have
not
given up.
orcs. I
Yeah.
don't know. Stop trying to put not orcs in my armies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was watching a video on Cruel Boys because I had like a few minutes to prepare, and it was this French guy at Worlds, Beji, and he was so funny. I loved it in his thick accent. One of the things that he said, and he plays Cruel Boys, I'd always choose to go second because when my opponent put a unit in the center, whatever that unit is, it shall die. And it was awesome.
First of all,
That's Cruel Boys
amazing.
to me.
Yeah, that's and he's not wrong, because what he's going to do is take his unit of 20 gut rippers and trick and buff and trick and buff, and then send them in, and they will blender the hell out of anything that they run up against, right? Because when they're fully souped up, they're a nightmare. It's just but hope you don't fail any dice rolls, I guess, is what I would say. Like,
Yep.
you know, and that is what ultimately will hold them back, and that's probably for the healthy, by the by. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think this is a bad thing. Please don't mishear me. I think this is the success story. I agree.
Yeah, if this was a Tzeentch army, all this stuff would work automatically. You would feel like a genius,
Right.
but you would be beating people without rolling a die
Right.
because you could just cheat at the game for free, you know. Or if you were Lumineth or something, they would just be like, "Yeah, you can do that because you're the." They talk about this in like video games and World of Warcraft and RPGs and stuff. The class fantasy. I think
Yes.
armies have this too.
100%.
Probably touched on a bunch of it before. The class fantasy of Lumineth is that your brain is so huge, that you have neck pain, you know, and you are so clever in Tzeentch that you get to cheat at the game and it was all just as planned. But actually, it's pretty easy. You
Right.
just reach over and pick up a 6. "Hey, look at that. I got a 12-inch charge," right? But the class fantasy is that you're so smart that everything works. And maybe that works a little bit against even the tricksy destruction armies.
Big sexy. We did not do ogres yet. Don't worry. That you got plenty of time on that one. By the way, hey, midstream here. If you haven't hit like or subscribe and all that kind of stuff, go ahead and do so. It's deeply appreciated. And don't forget super chats there as well. All right. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what I'll say about Cruel Boys is, good job. I guess it's. I think I would hold it up as probably in its current incarnation the most successful destruction army. It's the most fun. It's the most interesting. They actually get a decent number of their units on the table. Yeah, like well done. It's the exception that proves the rule because all the other destruction armies I look at these guys and go, why couldn't you be more like them? Okay,
Why couldn't you be more like your brother?
that's right. That's right. Okay, Iron Jaws. By the way, in case you haven't caught into what we're doing here, we're going in reverse quality order, so like or win rate order,
Win
so from the
percent order,
highest to the
yeah.
lowest. Yeah. This is for all the people out there watching. I know you knew it right away. You were. I know you knew what I was doing.
Mhm.
Iron Jaws, boy. So I have a lot of experience here. This is the definition of a blunt instrument. They
Yeah, you
are.
play this army, so
I
I'm gonna
do.
let you do it.
I have repeatedly played this army, much to my chagrin. I've tried so hard. And like ultimately, I do believe the right answer is you just stick Kragnos in this thing. Like it just does what you need to do. He actually has the answer to your problem, which is the next bullet, which is they are very slow and movement is king in AOS 4. And it turns out if you can just like move your brutes 3 inches and then 4 inches and then 3d6 charge them, it's a huge difference and it gets you where you want to be. And if you don't have that, you suck and you get charged because that's what happens. You have all these, you have faction abilities and a bunch of things that say when you charge, get cool stuff. Spoiler alert, units that move 4 inches don't charge people because you get charged. That's not how the game works. Things that move much faster than you sit way back and then go, and then when you scoot your dumb self up or don't or move back even, they just go whoosh and come forward and then charge you. That's what happens. It isn't complicated. Stop putting charge bonuses and charge related abilities into armies that move 4 inches. What game do you play? Okay? It really drives me crazy. Okay, because like unless you just get the double every time and take it, right? If that's your experience, then great, you're living a grand old time. Like sure, your 4 inch army's charging all the time. Because you just like 3 inches, 4 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, charge. This is easy. Yeah, sure. Okay. The most damaging unit in your army has a 4 inch base move. Your big pigs, there's only one good one out of all three of them. And that like even they aren't really fast. They're like fine. They're speedy. They're good. 10 inches isn't bad, don't get me wrong. But it's not great. There are plenty of 12 and 14-inch movement units in the game.
Mhm.
Okay. The army relies on having a 3-up save, which is not that impressive in a world of crit mortals. Like I hate to break it to you, everybody, but like we just talked about Squigs coming in from downtown, hippity hoppity, crit mortally your facey, okay, with 80 attacks. Your 3-up save is worth two things there: Jack and Squat, and Jack left town. All right. Uh, They have
Hippity
good.
hoppity, get off my property.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. They have good spells but bad spellcasters, and betting on magic is a loser in AOS anyways. Like if you bet on magic, I enjoy your 2-3 record. And they do not have any tricks. They are
Unless you cheated the game
right, unless you're a spell dom. That's
within
right.
the rules. Yeah, this is like baseball cheating where you can steal bases. It's fine.
That's right. That's right. If you're a spell dom that's getting like plus X to
Yeah,
cast
yeah.
and cast 10 million spells, bet on magic all day long. If you're
Yeah,
if you're Zinch or Seraphon or Teclis, yeah, go nuts.
good form.
Yes. And they have no tricks. It's like I understand they have mighty destroyers. I refuse to call that ability that thing. Okay.
You could pile in the hero phase.
Yeah, and like
Mighty
sure,
destroyers.
it's tricky. They'll call a battle tactic, and if you're clever, you'll do it and you'll be like, haha, but I move and then take that, and you'll stop them from being able to charge if they wanted to charge. That will happen sometimes. And boy do you feel like you're the biggest brain genius. One of the first games Halo I played with Ironjaws in the new edition was against Khorne. Okay. It was the worst game in the world. It was just us tactically, carefully, like murder lusting into a unit, then mighty destroyers into a unit, like trying to constantly barely move around and shut off each other's charges, and then just getting in like little weak fights on the edges of things. It was awful. Yeah, Ironjaws is in a rough spot. Rough. There is no fundamental. Ultimately, this why are they at the bottom? They have no advantages. They do nothing well. That's it.
For Ironjaws, I have written down, this is actually kind of easy because you had it.
Yeah.
We need an Ironjaws All Stars. You know the Mario games for
Yes.
N64, but we need a Ironjaws All Stars. You had it. Over the course of AOS, you've made the perfect Ironjaws already. Smashing and Bashing was good. Some iteration of Mighty Destroyers was good. Probably remove the charging requirement or something like that. 4 inches is too slow. Wizards are underserved here versus priests. This army is giving up a lot of phases to still kind of suck at getting to and winning fights.
Right.
Too many units are the same.
Yep, that's exactly right. And
you
like,
got slow big orc guy, unit of 3 slow big orc guy, unit of 3 slow big orc guy, unit of 5 slow big orc guy, 3 different pigs that are all the same except maybe one's good. Bunch of big anvil-y kind of cav with goofy momentum rules that I get bored reading halfway through that don't sound fun and ramp up over time. There is a trick with them, and that's kind of neat, but they lost the plot.
Indeed. And like, there also drops the army, by the way, for an army that just cannot afford to be.
You're supposed to have like 5
drops.
heroes or something, and that's not okay.
There's just, they need so many heroes to function. It's crazy.
Oh, and the one priest with the 2 bones.
Yeah, your sticks, your war.
The only thing written on his war scroll is if he kills something in melee combat, he gets something. I don't know who to tell this, but that's not happening. He ain't.
Hey guys, quick note: low armor 5, 6, 7 wound heroes do not go into combat in AOS 4 because the only thing they get to fight is other enemy hammers, because they tend to need to be near the central units. They're not out on the flanks fighting prospectors. Okay, sure. Like if that dude got into, I don't know, some like Claws of Karnak or some Raptorix, yeah, he's probably gonna like do okay. He'll probably walk away with like 2 wounds left, but be alive. Okay, but if you put him in against any unit, he explodes into a cloud of red mist. This is, by the way, every foot hero in the game. That's what's so funny about Khorne's new, or the S2D's new role-playing quest that their central, heroes on. It's just like, I saw a bunch of people talking about, like, this mechanic's so cool. I've played 3 games. I haven't managed to get anything with it yet. They keep dying, but I'm going to get there. I'm like, no, you're not.
We're designing rules that only work once every 5 games now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
You know, the average AOS player probably gets game in a month at most
Oh,
if
average?
they
The
play.
average is probably once a quarter.
I mean, like, if for people who play at all, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably like once every month or two.
Sure, sure.
So if you're designing rules that only work once every 3 games, I don't know, there might be precedents in between when you're going to refill the mall pot, you know?
Right, right. Um, yeah, and you're not wrong, Abaddon. Like S2D is really just like better Iron Jaws right now. Like your cavalry's better, your infantry's better, you're faster. You do everything the Iron Jaws want to do better, but you also have like other good abilities too. I don't know what to say there, except correct. Like S2D is just good Iron Jaws, so that's unfortunate.
I don't know why Iron Jaws need to make being slow their whole personality. The Bone Splitters are out of here. Okay, they were the fast orcs. Iron Jaws can be the fast orcs now. They're huge. Yeah, they wear big armor, but make them still 6 or 8 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
That's
they're
how
like
strong they are.
massively strong. They punched their armor into shape. That's pretty
Yeah,
strong.
pretty strong. You can
So,
just be the Giga Chad orcs, and then Cruel Boys are the big brain uh, rogue in World of Warcraft orcs, and then there you go. You got
absolutely.
each type.
That was what I played in WoW beta. I played a rogue. It's a lot of fun. Then I came back. I don't think I came back until Cataclysm. Then I played a hunter. Um, it's because I don't like being able to get into groups. Is what that story is there.
Yeah,
So it's fine. I like soloing. Um, all right, Sons. Okay,
this is a doozy.
it really is.
This is maybe the biggest doozy, and I play ogres. Mega Gargants might be the biggest doozy.
Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're right. This is just a fundamentally tough thing to solve, right? Because there are very few units in the army, meaning it struggles on multiple objectives, it struggles with battle tactics, you just don't have a lot of people, they can't be in a lot of places, etc., right? The army as a whole basically doesn't do any damage, like comparatively. Nearly every army has either a reinforced unit of infantry or cavalry that will hit 3 to 4 times as hard. I'm not joking. That's being like I am being completely straight with you when I say that the average damage done by most reinforced hammer infantry or cavalry units will be 3 to 4x what any Mega Gargan is capable of. And that reinforced unit of cavalry is probably 100 points cheaper. So, like, I don't know what we're doing here. They stand on circles reasonably well. Like, that's the only reason they win any games at all, because they can just walk. If the circles are less in number or close together, they can just all go stand there and be like, okay, I'm standing here now. They have no tricks. They have no other phase play outside of charge and combat, and charge is just like one rampage. Everything else is combat. And even their rampages are often RNG and fail. And like the fact that this army ever wins more than 2 games in a tournament means they just got lucky and were clubbing some kind of baby seal because the fundamentals here are terrible, terrible.
Yeah, I feel like the whole strategy, it's cool that they're trying something way out of left field, and you don't want armies to feel too similar. Every class is the same, kind of okay. Everybody's got their hammer, everybody's got their cavalry, everyone has their buffer, and it's nice to get outside of that a little bit. But Mega Gargants have been historically greatly punished for that, particularly in seasons, where every season they're zooming in on a piece of the game that Mega Gargants do not play in.
Right.
It's the Foot Hero season. Great. Don't got those. It's the Wizard season. Awesome. It's the
Manifestations are everywhere now. Uh
manifestation.
huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but also standing on circles. And if your opponent cannot pass the DPS check, you automatically win after moving one time in a movement phase. And if your opponent can pass the DPS check, they automatically win,
Right.
and you don't. There's no counterplay. It's too passive for the game, I think.
Yep. Yep.
You need to give the players more agency for this army. I don't think big anvils that kind of don't do anything is the way to go for it if
Yep.
you have to choose an extreme. Because with glass cannons, at least your life is in your hands and maybe the dice's hands. I think 4 is probably too few for how they are designing battle plans these days. Perhaps tone the giants down a bit and go to 5 megas or something like that. Also, delete man crushers until they get a sculpt. It isn't the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And man, I'm going to seem kind of cruel here, but there are only 6 war scrolls in this entire book. It's unacceptable that only 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
You can't do that kind of percentage. There there's 6 war scrolls in the book, and 4 of them are trash, and 3 of those 4 are basically the same. They're just copies
Yep.
of a better one. Like, there's King Broad, he's good, and then there's the one that has the thrown weapon and does the most damage, that you can replace with a coin flip for a bunch of mortals. And then you have a direct copy of that one that's worse, and then 2 other ones that are bad, and the Kraken Eater thing, which has, like, the ghost of a decent idea about kicking an objective,
Objective
but
around. Yeah.
they make it so short range and random and weird, and they have to FAQ it every battle plan they ever make just to make sure that it doesn't do anything really cool. Just make this thing an army, man. Just make it an army, okay?
Yeah.
Um,
It'd be
what if
cool if they
this
just
army's units were like the units in an army, okay?
right.
Give me a ranged shoot giant that throws crap. Give me a wizard giant.
Thank you.
Give me a
That's
fast
right.
hammer giant that's maybe vulnerable. Give me a necromancer giant that reanimates one at half
Thank
strength.
you.
But make
Yes.
it
Preach.
an army, okay? You have 6 war scrolls to choose from. Make a Dungeons and Dragons party out of them, okay? There's
Yep.
no excuse for 2 of them being so much the same.
Watch the Golden Girls. Understand the 4 quintessential and important roles that exist in every adventuring party. Make a giant each one of the Golden Girls.
Yep.
Problem solved. Okay.
Also, I'll give some praise too, so I'm being fair. The WWE thing was a great idea. I want you to lean into that. The suplex is a great idea, okay? Give me an elbow drop, how about? Give me the stunner. The the psychographic profile of the person thinking about playing a Mega Gargant's army and a WWE fan is just a circle.
It's
You hit
slightly
it.
off since I am one but not the other. But yes, it's
Just
just like it's
boom.
almost a
It
circle.
there's you can see maybe there's daylight in between it, but that's it.
It's like an eclipse. There's just that ring around the
Yeah.
edge. But I agree. Like you nailed it. There's so many fantasies for what giants could be, right? They like you're by the way, I do think that fundamentally they should basically like all come down to be 400 points on average and they should lose like 10 wounds. So
You gotta just
basically
put 5 guys on the table if you're
right.
gonna
So you've got
have
5
battle
of them and
plans
it
how they
averages
are. Yeah.
125 wounds instead of
Yeah.
4 of them at 140 or something like that. Like you can you can play around with it a little bit, but that's basically what 5 having 5 game pieces is pretty essential in this game.
That would mean you'd have to release a 3rd kit for the army, says Blastmeister. No, don't worry, just release yet another upgrade kit with legs pointed in the different direction. You're good.
Right. Like they went wrong fundamentally here by just making them big dumb British fairy tale giants. Okay, that was
Yeah,
where we
whimsy. Ugh. I
gross.
mean, they're better than ale guzzlers were. It's
Sure.
in the right direction. I just want to speed time up a little bit,
Yeah. Like this was your chance to actually make an intelligent destruction army, right?
And
Um
one based on a god beast for some realm world building stuff, and
yeah, cuz these
eh,
are just
uh,
big people. Why are they dumb?
they're
They're
just
just
big
big
people.
people.
He thinks he's people.
Yeah. Like I do not understand why they're stupid or whatever. Like it makes no
They're
sense.
just big people. Why do they have to be dumb? Their brains are probably huge. They're like the size of a living room, maybe.
Right.
A Burka lounger folds of cavernous deep folds of the brain. They got the brain of like a whale from
Right.
Avatar.
But yes, you
Why
could
are they
have like
dumb though?
the ironclad fighter giant, right? Like one in like full. Imagine like the giant in like full plate with a
Yeah, like a
massive
storm
great
giant
sword.
or titan from D&D, the ones that are,
Oh my god, yes, a storm
plates.
giant. Like one out there throwing lightning bolts around the battlefield.
Some
Yes.
Siegfried dude, yeah.
Like there's so many cool things you could do with giants. You could tie them and by the way, if you don't want to make them true knockoffs of D&D giants, that's fine. Then they're more primal. They're tied more to the winds of magic, and that would get at what you want, right? So you'd have the death giant and the life giant and the you know what I mean, and so on and so forth, right? And you could have them you don't need to cover all the winds. Like it's fine. You could just have some of those. They're aligned to some of the planes. And like that would have given you an excuse to spread out and have them play in different phases. So many of these bottom dweller destruction armies play in the combat phase and sort of the charge phase. That's it. They got nothing special going on in movement, no shooting to really speak of that matters, no hero phase stuff that's occurring. It's they get sort of charge and combat phase. Why? Why? Like that's just a failure of imagination. Spezia Poet, thank you for the super chat that says, we're just ordinary big people. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, my regular viewers are really enjoying this. What if it was X, but big?
Right.
Just everything. What
Like,
about this, but big?
yes. Like, it's so crazy to me that this is the idea we landed on, right? When there's like, yes, you mentioned like the Necromancer Death Giant. Like, holy crap. That rules. Right? Like this massive death giant that just kind of walks around, has like an aura of passive life draining that happens around him. Like you could write a ton of cool rules for them, and then you don't
Yeah,
need to
and he
worry about them
doesn't he
just being
doesn't
like
have to be
combat
a
phase killers.
he doesn't have to be a big derpo in a robe. He could look like some Theros god looking thing, with a big
Yes.
scythe or something.
Oh my god, yes,
Um
like Erebos.
just has to be big, yeah, Erebos or something. And he resurrects dead giants or whatever. You can, and this is like, keep in mind, my suggestions are very simple. Necromancer, but big, right? But it sounds so refreshing because what they did is, what about a hooligan from the hills have eyes except big?
Yeah. So it's just you're absolutely right. We just made like four clones of basically the same giant that are all some are like one is obviously the best, most are slightly bad, and then we made a boss
You
guy
look at
for
the
him, and
war
we called
scrolls;
it a
they're all the
day.
same. It's
Yeah.
so it drained my spirit when I was reading it.
Yep.
I'm like, the Control C, Control V keys of their keyboards must be
Just blank.
just
They're just
falling
blank,
apart.
completely rubbed off. Yeah. Yep.
Dwarf but big. Yeah, true. We need some wide gaming giants.
Absolutely. Oh my god. Yeah, it's just like he's like twice as wide, but only like bigger, but not huge. Yeah.
Do you know about the fridge Frazetta meme of my Discord?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that would be the like cube Frazetta is a
Yes.
dwarf but big, where they're exactly the same height and width
Did you ever
and
play
depth.
Neverwinter? Like
Yeah,
Neverwinter Nights? Yeah.
yeah.
Did you ever play like or fight against the Durger because they'll run around and enlarge themselves, or you could enlarge yourself in the game? Like enlarge was a spell
Oh,
you
I
could
don't
use.
remember that.
Oh, it was awesome because it's like the Durger would do it all the time because Durger classically have like enlarge as
Yeah.
a innate spell like ability, but you could do it if you had like if you were one as well, and it's always the funniest thing to me because they'd be like normal dwarves and then they'd run up to you and just be like, "Woof," and they'd get like super wide.
Absolutely wide gaming.
So at any rate, that's what I always think of. Yeah. Yes, like Kingpin from Spider Verse. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Just a cube
I
with a
have
face in the middle.
1% body fat. Yeah, okay, dude.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how we actually fix this because clearly, I mean, by the way, they could do this same stuff that we're talking about. It's a battle tome rewrite away. I don't care that the figs look how they look. They could just encourage creativity and just say,
Yeah.
like, these are things that the Giants do now. And they could rewrite them to be very different, to have a lot of different effects and tricks. Like, they could just do a rewrite. They don't need new kits. They could just make the what's his name guy in the actually who's like center in the picture here, but the or not center, I guess he's kind of left, But they could just make like the shipwreck like the shipwrecker giant. He could just have like ocean abilities and have stuff he does like that in the hero
Yeah.
phase, right? Like they could lean into that
Kraken
stuff.
Eater could do the dude with the assassin's hood thing, like, that could be, oh, he's the necromancer one, or
Right.
you and they're just like, "Hey, put whatever you want. Here's a few pages in the battle tome. We made our own. Look at all the stuff we put on them."
Right.
Well,
Like
do that.
encourage creativity again and
Yeah.
people will follow you. Like if you make a cool tome with cool abilities where the giants all feel different, people would not be upset that like the model doesn't exactly reflect that. Like they would people would go nuts customizing their giants and think it was the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever. You would be a hero. Spezia Poet with the super chat saying bilateralis big recallus. Yes, indeed. Okay. And of course there's only one army left. Hey, well we end on one more. One more. One
And one
more.
that will probably still be around next edition.
Yep. That is the ogres.
The only army still completely comprised of, Warhammer Fantasy Battle kits,
I guess you
except
tell
for the
you
Tyrant.
yeah, you've got a couple new ones. You got that hunter guy who's bad.
Oh, yeah, the
Um,
bit he was very fun to paint, I'll have you know.
sure, cool
The
model.
ice pelt or the ice what is it? The blood pelt hunter, that
There
guy.
you go. Yeah, yeah.
I had a good time hobbying that guy up and painting him for the one season where he could teleport on my opponent's turn, and now I got a paperweight for the rest of all time. They got me,
Yep.
apparently.
So I'll quickly state my things here, and then I want to turn you loose. Okay. Um, this army's only standout unit was broken with points increases. Gluttons were like decently good, then they broke them, and the army fell. I don't know, 15 percentage points in the win rate.
They went
Uh,
from third or fourth best army to exact last. Yeah.
exact last, yeah. The monsters don't really do anything. They have decent movement, but are weak hammers compared to similarly costed options in other armies, infantry and cavalry. Basically the same as the giant problem. Although in this case they're like more equivalently pointed since you're cheaper.
Yeah.
But they also die much easier. Like your monster trucks are just, as I'm sure Haywo is experienced many times. They get flipped over real easy. Anti-infantry is very common, and low defense infantry, even with a lot of wounds, simply gets lifted in the current high damage meta, so that's the problem for your Gutbuster side. Like, everything in the game is anti-infantry, and when you have all your units on a 5-up save, again, as I said, your units don't have a save, so neat that you have some wounds. Those wounds will be gone in a heartbeat. You have very few tricks, very little play in phases outside of charge and combat. My final question is, what is the actual path to victory here? In their minds, what is the path to victory with this army? How do they see this playing? Because I can't see it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so for we'll talk about Gutbusters first because that one's more easily salvageable, I think.
Sure.
Um, Ogres were doing very well early on in fourth edition, if you recall. They were still, I think they even were above the Goldilocks zone for a little while, and
Yep.
I said at the time that this is mono red burn doing well in a brand new standard
Agreed.
when no one knows what the combo decks are yet, and nobody knows enough about the format to build control yet. You have an army at the time with a very efficiently costed unit in Gluttons that just do a shitload of damage. Um, and that's it. You just do a bunch of damage. You do a bunch of damage, you move it 8 inches, and you run in charge. That's the army. And when no one really knows how to play fourth edition yet, moving 8 inches, run in charge into 30 damage is good. It's just going to win games.
Right.
But I'm like, I think this is mono red. And as people learn how to play fourth edition, and as people figure out which armies don't really have to play the game, they'll just kind of tumble down. And actually, even with seemingly undercosted gluttons and stuff like this, they'll hover around 50%, 51% eventually. This is just a meta thing. And it started to happen. They went into the Euro OK zone. And then from the OK zone, Gluttons went up, I think, 30 points each.
Yeah, 30
Huge.
points. Yeah, from 220 to
And then the
250.
army completely died. So, hey,
Because they lost a unit. That's what happened, right?
yeah, they lost the full unit. And Yeah. Man, if only someone could have predicted that. Oh well. Um,
It was unforeseeable.
but that was actually kind of an issue anyway, right? Because the army was one thing that you just spam. And usually you don't want that. That's not good. Look at Gloomspite Gets. What happens if frogs go up 30 or 50 or something? Probably the same thing, you
Yep.
know?
Oh yeah, sure.
It's
Like it'd be very
one of
easy
those
to
House
imagine
of
the same
Cards.
situation with Trogs.
Yeah, it's one of those
100%.
House of Cards factions where you think the faction's good, but actually a single unit is too good.
Right.
And when you balance that unit, you realize, oh, actually, there's nothing here.
Yep. The foundation
So
is
anyway,
sand.
what do you do about Gutbusters? Someone from my chat, when I was first looking into them in fourth, someone from my chat called them fat daughters of Cain. And that sent me. It was perfect. It's so funny. Yeah, that's what they are. Uh, they're reasonably fast for foot sloggers, I guess. They can run and charge easily with butcher buffs. Their wizards are actually good
Yep. Agreed.
with good spells. Um, like good enough to hold the army together with glue. And they do a ton of damage. They die. They have a lot of wounds, but they don't have durability. They have like ablative. It's like it's ablation, I guess. You're always losing stuff. You're just losing each one slower, but you're taking damage. It's not like you have wards where you're not taking damage, right? So, you know, 5 up saves, you just take a bunch of damage and die. Um, Too many of your guys are a little too similar. You know, man eaters are basically gluttons are basically iron guts are basically
Right. It
okay.
still
And then you
shocks
just
me that
take
we didn't do a stronger role differentiation between like those three units. And like,
yeah.
okay, you
They
say
needed it
maybe man eaters they're just going to retire or something eventually. I don't know or not.
probably. Yeah.
Who knows? I think they should be like the first thing resculpted because they've played around with the edge of it and they're obviously an amazing sculpt potential there. But like you could easily imagine having three defined roles amongst those three units. It would be really
Mhm.
easy. Like just make Iron Guts an attrition anvil, make Gluttons your hammer, and make Maneaters your utility mobility unit. Like there could be ways to have all three of them have some kind of unique value. But
Mhm.
nope.
Nope. Gorgers are interesting and cool and have a
Yep.
trick. They're 260, which is a lot for a 6 up save unit, but they do have a neat trick. And I think if they cost a reasonable amount of points, you might run one or two of them in the future time. But okay, Gutbusters. They actually have a decent amount of shooting units. That if those shooting units weren't universally like totally terrible, that could be like the trick that might start to move Gutbusters in a direction. They got Iron Blaster, Scrap Launcher, a whole bunch of Lead Belchers that have never been good. Really bad, actually.
Well, and I'll say
They're
just real
they're
quick,
Soviet Russia. It's the faction where the pistols do D3 and the cannons do 1.
right? This was actually their original strategy. So when they were introduced in Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition, you absolutely saw mixes of Gutbusters and Lead Belcher units because the Lead Belchers could put a lot of pressure on from a distance, right? And like
Yeah.
they did real damage. Lead Belchers were
Mhm.
scary. And that would put the pressure on that would get the enemy army moving up the board, which could then open up for your Gutbusters to charge them, which and you know, cause like kind of the play pattern that you would imagine this army would want. That's just completely absent here.
Yeah. So the groundwork is laid. You don't have to print a new thing. It's really like, hey, half of this army is either really bad or weirdly costed or both. And you could have a decent amount of shooting. I think that would like tie the room together. And then maybe there's some minor stuff like I don't know about that tyrant and maybe gluttons are too close to this or that, but um maybe a little more. I think they could be like the vampires of destruction in a certain way. You know, when you're always fighting, when you're fighting, you're eating. That's where they get their longevity from, perhaps.
Right.
so that you're not just tabled by turn 3 if you get charged, which still would probably happen, but whatever. Anyway, there's a decent. I think Gutbusters have the most decent shot. Beast Claw is just totally lost. They're just lost in a field. We used to do the Blood Vulture thing, that's gone. We used to have Stone Skeleton, that's gone. We used to be really fast, that's basically gone. We used to do a whole bunch of impact hits, that's basically gone. We used to have, yeah, we've lost everything that made us interesting or fun, and the only thing we have left are monsters whose points are on the downward slide, of the race to the bottom. Cheap, bad monsters that capture 10. That's it.
Yep.
We have bases that are about this big that capture 10 and have 4 up saves and like 15 wounds or whatever, and ignore 1 point of damage in the phase that they're killed from full life. And then when it comes
When
time
they
for
take
them to
40
attack,
damage, it will only be 39. Don't worry.
yeah, it'll be 39. Got them, easy. And when it comes time for them to attack, if they're anything but a Frost Lord, they do pretty poor damage. And if they're a Frost Lord, it's random,
Yeah.
usually just all right, I guess. It's not like infantry damage this edition. It's not like cavalry damage in this edition. 10 is a good roll for damage after saves from. That's like a good roll, you know? So what do you do? Not great damage, die very easily, 10-inch move, capture 10. Hey, all right. The Everwinter Prayer is not fun. I don't like that. That was a monkey paw from The Simpsons curling. Every edition, the players are like, we want Everwinter to do something. Make it like Tides of Death. You could write all this cool stuff for Everwinter. We want it to do something. That's like the whole lore. What should it do? A 2% chance at a D3 sometimes if they're in melee combat, and it's rolled back around, but only to my hero phase. That stuff sucks. Make it do something cool. And they're like, what if it was this prayer that targets terrain for some reason and gives it obscuring for some reason? And then once a game, if you overcharge it and you're near that terrain, you get a 5-up ward back that 6 months ago you were getting killed from full life when you had anyway. Because we weren't exactly like that durable back then either. It
Right.
was just the Frost Lord with the 3-up and the -1 the wound specific like artifact and everything. That was the like one anvil. Um, we got to like rethink what this army is supposed to be about. Are we supposed to be like an army of man crusher gargants? Like I play 7 or even 8, like if they get cheap enough, just kind of like cheap bad monsters they can technically capture. I'm like a capture thing where I go and capture a point and then I die and then I recapture it later by standing with a molecule on it. It's not fun. I don't know.
And I think that a lot of what we could do here, honestly, relates back to the same conversation we had with Suns, but with a different angle. Because like you actually do have differentiation amongst the various and sundry models in the BCR side, right? You've got your Frost Lords, you've got Stonehorns and Thunder Tusks and so on
Yeah,
and
you
so
have
forth, right?
the two different
Two different
you
guys,
know,
two different mounts.
two
Okay,
different two different beasts, 3 possible guys on each of them. You
right,
got the melee beast, which is Stonehorn, and you have the ranged damage beast, which is Thundertusk, who has sucked for 7 years
right.
because they were too good in first edition. And maybe they were, but it was the Wild West edition, whatever.
Right.
If doing good range damage is illegal, and it seems to be, then maybe just like give them something else to do. I don't know.
That's just it. I would actually lean into it. Like I would look at those, let's call it four distinct
Sure.
heroes, right? Okay, or
Yeah.
whatever. And I would say, what are the four of these actually meant to do? So I would make the Frost Lord like your combat monster, right? Like he's your go out hero monster hammer, right? And let's give him the rules to make that happen. Like where he's at right now, it isn't there. But we could get to a version of him that isn't that hard to imagine, building off of the foundation we've got, because we know we can, because it's existed in the past with this model. Like, it
Yeah.
has happened. I'm not like trying to, build a house out of sand here, right? Like, this was reality for a long time. And then you take the other three and you say, okay, these guys are going to do other things. And that doesn't mean some random rampage that you use if you're in combat range that maybe on a dice does an ability. I mean,
Yeah.
like, this guy in, like, take the Thunder Tusks and give them some real base shooting, whatever. It can be short range ish, 12, 15 inches. That's fine. But make it real, right? It's real damage, it's a real threat, and it imposes like a real penalty. Like, have them be debuffers and then give them also some abilities in the hero phase or in the shooting phase or something of themselves that then they can do that provides extra utility to either your troops or debuffs to the enemies or whatever, right? Um like, they're the ones who, like, one of them, let's say the priestly one, so the I think I can think of a stupid name, the not Frostlord.
Oh, the Huskard.
Thank you, Huskard. I couldn't think of his dumb name. So let's say the Huskard on Thundertusk, traditionally the worst one, right? Like, he's always been Garbo. Okay, fine, he's a priest, whatever. I don't care. Great, that gives him like a hero phase thing to do. It's crap. Let's say then we make their spells better.
Yeah.
Give him a good shooting attack, and then what if he was like the objective interaction guy? That, like, in some phase, if he's contesting an objective, he can like wreathe the objective in ice. Okay, and then any other models that come onto it are neg 1 to hit and take a d3 mortal wounds or something like that, or both, right? Like, just a thing he passively does, not on a roll. It's just a thing he does. Like, he wreathes the objectives in ice,
Yeah.
right? And so
Or
he
maybe
makes it
he's
like
or
hard
maybe
for
he's on
them
an
to kill.
objective and he shoots harder. I don't know.
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
you
great.
could think of a whole bunch of
And so on. And you keep going down and
stuff.
say these guys have
Yeah.
4 distinct roles, right?
Yeah.
Now we got something. Not just like 4 dudes who all kind of run and kind of hit mildly hard, sort of, maybe once in a great while, but mostly they do nothing,
Yeah.
and so on.
I think you will have to make them hard to kill though. That might be a necessity.
Yeah, I think you could make them.
Maybe it's like a normal army where a normal army, your anvil is like your troops. You got like 10 of them, and
Mhm.
they're big. Maybe the battle line monsters are the anvil ones, and the heroes are like hammers or something, but not.
Or you could have it where half the heroes are actually reasonably tough and the other half are not. And like,
Yeah.
just like any army, then you kind of like, you know, you gotta
Like an
like,
army. Yeah.
like an army where you're trying to like
Yeah.
actually maneuver your pieces, that kind of thing. Like an army, you know. So, like, I could
Um.
see it.
Mhm. Icebrow Hunter should be a priest, and Frostlord should be a priest naturally. This isn't for mechanical gameplay reasons. This is for lore. Okay. The Huskards of the tribe are priests, and they have an election. And when they get elected to be the leader, they become a Frostlord. And a Frostlord is not a priest. So what happens when you used to be a priest as a Huskard, and then you get elected to be president, and you forsake your god and eat the bird you used to have because you don't have a bird either? It's like political commentary, maybe. Or, I don't know. I think you should still be a priest, and you should keep your bird. Although, actually, nobody has birds anymore because they
Yeah, the
definitely
birds are
didn't
all
want
bad
us
now.
playing with those.
I mean, it's just like, again, solutioning is tough, but you look at the fundamentals. Like,
Yeah,
there is so many ways to go. Pick one. Just pick,
you can
like,
go a lot of ways with it.
pick any of these for the book.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting this in a battle scroll, but like, when it comes to a book, they have
Yeah,
to
when it
see
comes
it.
to a book, also that prayer, that Everwinter prayer, start over harder than you started over with the Bat Moon because it
Oh my
wasn't
god.
even a good idea from that top part. It's not about
Yeet that thing into
implementation.
the
It's like
sun.
go away. Yeah,
Yeah, just like, how about a prayer that's just like a good prayer that you want to do, like a some kind of buff prayer that's
yeah. I'm
cool.
okay with spending a lot of points if the thing is good. I would actually prefer that. I don't know. Maybe this is like player feedback that they'd like to hear, but I would actually prefer to have expensive giant monsters that are, like, really good, rather than even undercosted ones that are just, like, okay. I would
Yep.
rather have the cool big thing because of the psychographic profile maybe that would play the cool big monster army, like, they
Agreed.
want the big monsters to be kinda cool.
David Heron says, "Don't worry, it'll probably be a third terrain piece."
Speaking of thank you for bringing that up, David, because I almost forgot. We are the only army in the game with 2 terrain features, okay?
Which you
I'm
might
gonna
think, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna
but hey,
I'm
well,
gonna
there's
do
two
the
armies,
bit.
so that would make sense. One is for each of them, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the bit, and so you would say that, of course, there's 1 terrain feature for each half of the army.
Makes total sense.
You have the Maw Pot, which is clearly made for Gutbusters because 'cause they're the blood mages, right?
Of course.
And it gives bonuses, but only to wizards, and it gives power level. That's for Gutbusters, and then you have the Maw Pit, and that can only be manned by the wizards, which are also Gutbusters. Okay. So both terrain features are explicitly and very carefully written to only be usable by Gutbusters. Why? Perhaps what if the Maw Pot was for Gutbusters and the Maw Pit was for Beastclaw? Could we put a little Icebrow duder on there instead of a Slaughtermaster keyword that it has to be or what you know, maybe something like that. That one was scary to me. I'm like, "Ooh, we got 2 terrain features and they're both for guts? Hmm, am I not long for this earth? We'll see."
Yeah, stuff like that happens. You're like, am I living in crazy town here? Like, how is this? How is this what happened? It's people have pointed out arrested at Waffle House, still the greatest name in YouTube. Says, excuse me, War Clans has two now as well.
True, yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess I'm gonna still call shenanigans on that. Technically, they have one terrain piece you can build in two ways. So actually,
and they
um,
are 2 separate armies in the same book, which makes the separate part a little rub me the wrong way,
yeah.
but
Well, don't worry. Somehow, allegedly, Big Wa is back now through an army of renown. So we'll see what that looks like.
what a bad idea Big Soup was. But hey,
Okay.
alright. Um, figure out something. I'm not, pining away for how this used to be or that used to be or whatever. I'm just trying to have fun, but
Agreed.
it's, very different than any hint I've seen you do so far with, like, this whole thing. But take your time, uh, remember fun.
I want to see somebody do this book who cares about ogres as much as whoever did the Sylvaneth update in the Battle Scroll cares about
Yeah,
Sylvaneth. That's all I
yeah,
want.
yeah.
And like, that's not a joke. That's very real. Like, that Sylvaneth change was done by somebody who knows and loves Sylvaneth deeply.
See,
Because,
I saw the distance change on
right,
the Wildwood, and I'm like, "You played the game
that's right.
to come up with that change.
Yep,
You played that army one time, and you're like, ugh, I gotta no." And that's the kinda thing that I haven't seen for a while with
right.
ogres.
That reeked of like experienced. That was like me myself, like in my normal job where I'm a product manager, right? And we study our users and how they act. I was like watching the results of somebody doing a deep investigation, like time and motion study, and taking notes, and then implementing changes to improve the quality of life of the user, right? And I was like, this is such a good example of user focused quality of life design that I try to execute on in my products. And I couldn't believe it because it was so smart and so sharp and so good. And I was like, when does this happen for every other army, right? Because it displayed a level of intricacy that I want to see them bring to each army, honestly. And so
Andrew
like,
M. Nobody at GW cares about ogres, though. Look, I don't care about what I video edit for the finishing company on my day job, but I make it look good because that's my job, and I'm a professional.
Makar says, my friend getting into AOS with 4E Sylvaneth was on an emotional roller coaster. Yeah, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah,
Boy.
ups and downs on that one in reverse
Yes.
order.
Arrested Waffle says, I'm looking forward to the Heywo Ogre new Codex video where it's just nonstop that Terminator gif. Just the whole time, just two
Still
hours,
shooting, yeah.
page
The
by
please
page.
wrap it up sign.
Yes. Oh boy. Uh so Abaddon says, I don't think Heywo would like this, but what about slamming Gutbusters and BCR back together into the Ogre Kingdoms faction of old? No more separation. Well, I mean, that's basically what they did. They're not
That's
really two
clearly
armies.
the direction we're going on.
Yeah.
Icebrow Hunter probably gone. Yeti's probably gone. Cat's gone. Keep Mornfang. Keep the monsters. Maneater's probably gone. Butcher Slaughtermaster new kit probably. Hopefully the Foot Ogres new kit because it's like 7th edition. Um, and then very importantly, give them all encompassing good lore. Okay, because Ogre Kingdoms wasn't it, and current Gutbusters ain't it, and current Beast Claw is actually a little goofy. But they had a civil war and everything. That's the place we're moving towards. Circle the wagons, refresh all the ancient stuff, which is actually everything, especially the fine cast. And if the lore is good, and the art is good, and the models are good, and the rules are fun, I don't care. I'm trying to have
Right.
fun.
Yeah, you could have a 48%
I
win
want
rate
it
like
to
Cruel
look
Boys and still have a
good
great
and
army.
be fun. Okay.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I'm not picky. I'm looking for it to. I'm looking for new plastic models because I'm not trying to buy old fine cast stuff. I want them to look awesome. If you want to keep ripping off Elden Ring, by all means do so. Love it. Send over the guy who did Big Oosh and the Rat Priest. Sculpt up a Frost King or something. Hey, I'm like smacking my credit card in Games Workshop's face. I've bought one army in like a decade, and it's just a whole bunch of ogres. I'm due. I'm due for a second one. Give me some new sculpts. And if the rules are fun, hey, all right.
It's
I
not a
think
high bar.
maybe with GW, I think they think that their customer base is all wrapped up in tradition and count all the bolts and care about how it used to be, even if it was in some other game. Um, Maybe in 40K that's more true than AOS. I don't care. I just want it to be cool and be fun and look sweet.
Agreed. It's a good place to call it. All right. Any final thoughts there, Heywo, before we call it a night on destruction? I don't know if we solved anything, but we certainly talked through what's at the root of this. I hope so. Maybe that hopefully someone thinks about it more deeply. What's your final thoughts?
Yeah, my Discord DMs are open. Always willing to give feedback. I made 2 feedback videos. One's really long, one's really short. I felt that was pretty fair. I would just like for the final product to be like good and fun. So if you're looking for anything else, just ask.
Agreed. All right. Well, for all of you out there, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who watched tonight. Thank you, Heywo. Thank you for all the likes, the subscribes. If you haven't hit those yet, click things, make dings, be cooler. Thank you to all our super chatters. Thank you everybody who is leaving awesome comments and engaging in the conversation. Good discussion tonight. Big discussion tonight. Don't forget
Big
to.
thoughts.
That's right. Don't forget tomorrow night over on Heywo's Twitch channel, you will find an awesome game happening of Palladium Rifts. So go check that out. I will be there. I will be back playing my character. Can't wait. I'm very excited. Rifts, the best bad game that's ever been made. Yeah, so come on over and hang out with us. It's going to be a great time. And thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Hey, well, thank you, sir. And for all of you out there, as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.